to get some meaningful commentary on a number of the incredible stories. I call them incredible because there's been so many interesting developments since we last spoke 23 hours ago. And joining me to help me do that is Daily Signal columnist Jarrett Stepman. Again, he is a columnist there. I have to ask you first about this deportation story. Our favorite deportee, the Maryland man, the Maryland father, the wonderful man. Here are two things that have happened, Jarrett, since I last did my program 23 hours ago. First, we found out that this guy had multiple orders, or at least requests for orders of protection against him from his wife, who says he beat her more than once. Lovely man. And now we've also learned that, yes, maybe he wasn't exactly on the list for deportations, but when he was detained, when he was grabbed up, he was meeting with MS-13 leaders. In other words, he wasn't a part of the ladies' auxiliary of the MS-13. He was talking to some of the top thugs who run that gang. And this is the guy that Senator Chris Van Hollen made a big point on social media. I'm flying down to El Salvador, holding up the phone and talking how he's going to try to save this lovely man. I mean, again, Jarrett, my running question, the Democrats can't be making it this easy for Donald Trump. This is incredible how easy they're making it for him. Go for it, Jarrett.
Yeah, I mean, this is, what it's like being in sort of that closed circuit liberal environment, that they think that this is the big story that's going to take down Trump, that's going to take down his deportations. Is this what Americans are concerned about when they brought in millions of illegal immigrants across our border under Joe Biden? Many people who are as dangerous or more dangerous than this man. The fact that we now have a senator going down to El Salvador, we have this man being lionized, essentially. You wonder, how much they would do if it was an American citizen who had been nabbed by another country. Certainly the American citizens who were nabbed by Hamas, they didn't do nearly as much for in Israel. So it's really incredible. They're staking essentially the resistance this time against Trump on this case that most Americans, they look at this and say, well, why are these people, why aren't they gone? I mean, this is an El Salvadorian national. I mean, even the original case that allowed him to stay in the country, saying that, well, it's dangerous because there's a rival gang in his country that might go after him. Well, it's funny that even that issue sort of been resolved at this point, because El Salvador is now a much more peaceful, crime-free country due to the changes that have happened down there. So I think their entire narrative has exploded on this, but they're too far down the rabbit trail now. This man's been lionized as one of the heroes of the left to stick it to Trump and to show how mean and evil these people are. Well, I think the guy they deported sounds like a really bad dude, and I think most Americans get that.
Yeah, I mean, and you have, Chris Van Hollen, of course, and we didn't even mention the fact that there was a woman in Maryland, a mother in Maryland, a real citizen of the state of Maryland, who was murdered by an illegal alien, and her mother is calling out Chris Van Hollen, the senator from Maryland, for not even mentioning her name, even as he goes down and makes a huge deal over this. And I'm not even going to say his name. I mean, honestly, obviously he's a human being, and there's human rights involved here, and of course he still has human rights. It's not like I'm trying to dehumanize the guy. But this is a person who has a rap sheet. This is a person accused several times by his wife, who was an American citizen. So imagine being an American citizen and going to the court several times and saying that your illegal alien husband beat you. You must know that that's going to possibly lead to his deportation. That's how bad it must have been. And of course, again, now the report's saying, according to the Attorney General of the Justice Department, that he was meeting with MS-13 members when he was grabbed up. It's not like he was just, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. No, that's not what happened here. And again, this is a terrible hill to die on. The Democrats have a lot of them. We're going to talk about one in just a moment, but a lot of them. Now, again, another big loser for a second here of the last 24 hours is New York Attorney General Letitia James. Now, she's staying mum about allegations that she committed mortgage fraud. Now, I'm not saying this in her defense. This is something that a lot of politicians do, Jarrett. They say they have a primary residence in one place because that's where they need to live, either to get elected or to be a little bit more closer to their constituents, but they really live somewhere else. And as many of you people know, especially since we've all just filed our taxes, you got to be sure about where your primary residence is for tax purposes and other things like that. She's not saying anything about it. And one of the things I feel very comfortable saying she's very probably guilty here, because especially in New York, this is a very common fudging of the records that politicians do. But she's not saying anything. And let's play political advisor here. This is one time where I think her advisors are smart. She shouldn't say anything because I think she's really guilty.
Yeah, she should. I'll say that nobody's above the law, right? I mean, that's the problem that you have here. It's quite amazing. I mean, I agree that she should probably stay quiet on this. I know that she has some defenders in the media saying that the system is being weaponized against her, which I find to be awfully rich in this case. But I mean, this is what she was going after, especially the mortgage claims after President Donald Trump on this. She was apparently being accused of being guilty of the same thing, if not more so. And having read the sort of the facts of what she's been accused of, it sounds like they may have a very serious case against her. The top attorney basically in New York, I have to say, I mean, this is the problem. I mean, they say that the system has been weaponized against her. Well, what has she been doing the last 4 years? And frankly, it does get to the point that many, as you said, many politicians engage in this. Why was it sort of used against Donald Trump and is not used against other politicians, other people in power, like Letitia James? I mean, I think the New York Post had a great headline, "A Tish Served Cold." I think that was a good way of putting this. The Trump administration obviously has a reason to go after her. She went after them. But these are, as you said, it's something that maybe is very common among politicians, but she's gone after others for doing similar things. So it's only fair that they go after her.
Yeah, I mean, really, I can promise you the way this went down at the Justice Department, and in this case, it was at the Federal Housing Authority. I'm sure they said, wait a minute, doesn't every single politician in New York and who supposedly lives in New York City do this? And they probably didn't even have to look at the records first and find it. I'm sure they knew what they were looking for and found it easily. All right, here's another shocker, Jarrett. The guy who firebombed the Shapiro governor's mansion, Governor Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, it turns out that police say he told them that his motive was he hates Josh Shapiro because he hates Israel and he thinks Josh Shapiro supports Israel too much, which is also kind of a laugh. Josh Shapiro is not a great supporter of the state of Israel, frankly. His fellow Pennsylvania, Senator John Fetterman, who's not Jewish, by the way, is a much bigger supporter of Israel. But apparently that's not enough for these mentally ill, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic people. And as I say very often, bigotry and anti-Semitism is not only a mental illness, but it's a symptom of other mental illnesses. And I am not trying to stigmatize mental illness. But if you're about to tweet at me or email me about that, don't. I'm doing the opposite. I'm raising a red flag. It's very, very serious. But there's something about Jew hatred that gets people really, really stupid. Ask the folks at Harvard, by the way. They're willing to lose $9 billion over it. And this guy is going to lose his freedom probably for the rest of his life.
Yeah, he certainly will. There is something that drives people. Maybe it's the anti-Semitism itself that drives some people entirely crazy, where that's all they can think about. That's all they can talk about. That's all they can think about. Everything's connected to this one issue. It's quite pathetic. I think this case is indicative, unfortunately, of a larger kind of culture of now assassination and violence, the John Wilkes Boothification of American politics. We've seen now 2 assassination attempts of President Trump. We've seen other cases that have been sort of glorified in some cases. In his case, I think he's not quite so handsome as Luigi Mangione, who's been glorified by a former TikTok reporter, Taylor Lorenz. But we've seen so many cases now where the violence has sort of been justified by many in the media. Yes, the direct cases that oftentimes people condemn, but we're seeing an escalation of violent attacks on political leaders that I think do represent something larger and worse. And, I think this case, you can say that he was certainly politically motivated, obviously somewhat touched in the head. But, as we see attacks on Tesla dealerships, as we see attempts at assassination, this is clearly an escalating problem in society. Some of these cases may be somebody who's a nutcase. Other cases, there's sort of a fine line between somebody who is mentally unstable and somebody who's doing this for political reasons, to attack somebody who they don't like. It's obviously a disgusting act.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to something joyous and more meaningful. You did an article recently about how Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt wants to make Easter a national federal holiday. Let's talk about this effort, because even if it isn't successful now, I think it gets a nice discussion going in America.
Yeah, I absolutely think it does. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. It's one of the longest unbroken periods where we don't have a federal holiday. March and April, there's no federal holiday. It certainly would make things a lot easier. I kind of like the idea of putting it on Good Friday, actually, because I think it helps those, especially those who are celebrating Passover, maybe getting an extra day too. I like extra federal holidays. I think it's a good thing. I realize that there's talks about, it lowers productivity, whatnot, but people should have a little extra day for holidays. This is part of, this is why we work. This is why we do the things we do. So we have times with family. We have times to celebrate, especially for Christians, Easter being the most holy holiday on the entire calendar. It would be very nice for Americans to get this extra day off. I don't see why this hasn't happened earlier. Most Western countries have a day off for Easter. I think it's pretty common practice. So let's have more holidays. I think the idea that the federal calendar of holidays needs to be limited, I think it's bogus. I think it makes people more productive. I think it makes people happier and enjoy the things in life and makes them more productive, especially at a time where they're not getting much of a break. So I love the idea. I think it needs to happen.
Well, I need a federal holiday to overcome the 4.5 hours it takes ABC to run the 10 Commandments every year. And I know it's on a Saturday night, but I need extra time for that. And also all the biblical inaccuracies in that movie. Oh, it's a great movie. I don't care. It's a lot of fun. All right.
Oh, it's
Jared
one of my
Stepman,
favorites.
Have a great Holy Weekend. I know you have Good Friday tomorrow and Easter on Sunday. And today is Monday, Thursday, by the way. So enjoy all of that and also find some meaning in it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, coming up, now the feds are suing the rogue governor of Maine, who is defying a clear majority of our own voters, the White House, and common sense by choosing to risk her state's very needed federal funds in order to allow boys in the girls' locker room. That's what it's for. I'll have the latest on that. And a new report says Mark Zuckerberg really thought a very small amount of sucking up to President Trump would give him and Facebook a big antitrust pass. Not so much, Marky Mark. That story is also ahead as American Sunrise Early Edition continues. Still a very cold, a little too cold for me for an April 17th. I'm sorry, a little too cold, but it is clear and crisp in the New York area today. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. Special welcome to those of you on Getter and Rumble who are watching and commenting. A lot of you had something to say about the Tish James story and how turnabout is fair play on her. So I'd like to see those comments. You're going to have something to say about this story, too. Maine's Governor Janet Mills had a few weeks to reconsider her decision to defy her own state's voters, the federal government, and common sense. But she has decided to die on the hill of allowing boys to play girls' sports and be in the girls' locker room. Now her time is up. Here's Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Today, the Department of Justice is announcing a civil lawsuit against the Maine Department of Education. The state of Maine is discriminating against women by failing to protect women in women's sports. Pretty basic stuff. This is a violation of Title IX. The Department of Justice will not sit by when women are discriminated against in sports. This is about sports. This is also about these young women's personal safety. I've met many of these women throughout the past weeks and months, and what they have been through is horrific.
And I want to say another thing about Maine. I lived in Maine and I worked in Maine. Maine is a poor state. Maine is also a state that's really, really getting old. Not a lot of families with children in Maine compared to other states. They cannot afford losing any one penny of federal funding. Now, if there was something that was really threatening her state's constituents, and it was worth dying on the Hill to fight for, I could understand Governor Mills defying President Trump and the federal government. But the overwhelming majority of the voters in Maine want to protect girls and girls' sports. They oppose what the governor is doing here. There's only two reasons why she would do this: risk the funding for a poor state and defy her own voters. And that is, she's being pressured, probably by the Democratic National Committee, which is telling every elected Democrat to fall in line on this or else, because she's worried about money for her reelection or her next campaign. That's the funding she's really worried about. Or she's not all there mentally. That's possible as well. I'm sorry, but people who are in politics, they're not any less likely to be nuts than the celebrities are. It's the same pressures and the same experience. Let's not, again, not stigmatizing or making light of mental illness, folks, but when you do this kind of self-destructive stuff that we've seen from Chris Van Hollen and Janet Mills and some other elected people, I'm going to ask whether or not you're all there upstairs. They need help. Let's get them some help. Sorry, not making fun of mental illness, because this is no joke. All right, there is some sanity, however, somewhere. Guess where? Great Britain. Its Supreme Court has just ruled that only those born female can be considered women. It's a landmark judgment that excludes transgender women, or people who say they're women or are not, from the legal definition of being a woman, and paves the way for tighter limits on female-only spaces and services where so many biological women have been assaulted, raped, and had just their privacy destroyed. Now, that's a fancy way of saying a lot of smarty-pants judges in Britain finally decided that 2 + 2 = 4. And by the way, I just want to say one thing. This case took a lot of courage from the original plaintiffs in this case, a few women who were absolutely destroyed in the media and on social media in Britain for years as they were determined to bring this case to the highest court in their country. This is a great, great win, and hopefully our Supreme Court and our lower courts will look very closely at this. Great Britain is a much more liberal country in the way that it votes and thinks than the United States, and yet even its Supreme Court has said women are women. You got to be born a woman to have those legal protections, period. Coming up, the details of a very telling new report about how Mark Zuckerberg thought a little lip service and $1 million would get him and Facebook out of a $30 billion mess. Didn't work out. And Amazon just keeps growing. Now, one major car maker is getting into bed with the online monopolistic giant. Are you sure you still want to invest in Carvana, folks? American Sunrise Early Edition is coming right back. doing big cities today. We started the last segment of the show looking at New York City. This is a live shot of Chicago, Illinois. And I'm sure it's pretty cold there today as well, but also clear. You can't argue with the clear. That's what you want. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. Let's take a look at where the markets are going to begin today, because we, after a few days of calm, had another big wild day yesterday where the Dow closed down about 700 points. And it looks like we're going to have, this is an interesting mixed, look at this mixed chart here. You got the Dow opening, if it opened right now, down 553 points, but you got the NASDAQ opening higher, the S&P 500, more broader market, opening higher. Gold is really flat, just down $2.60. Look at that. Gold is at the $3,300 per ounce mark. This is just setting new highs just kind of almost every other day. And crude oil is creeping back up, but we are still well below $70. But we're at the $63 dollar barrel mark. Let's take a look at Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin, I'm going to guess. I mean, it is stuck in a range. This is so unusual because Bitcoin moves so much more volatile in a more volatile way than than stocks, for example. But it is stuck. It has been basically stuck between $80,000 and $90,000 for weeks and weeks now. And there it is right there, up 2%, up to only $2 this morning, not 2%, up just $2. So that's where we are on Bitcoin. Okay, the other reason for the big losses yesterday that we had, again, I mentioned we were down about 700 points on the Dow, had nothing to do with tariffs. This is interesting. So NVIDIA, that's the company that you probably maybe not have heard of until a couple of months ago. I'm sure a lot of you watching are a lot more savvy than that. Maybe one or two of you have never heard of this company. This is the computer chip company that really makes the chips that power AI more than any other chip company. They're the ones. So yesterday they mentioned the fact that, by the way, we have these very, very sensitive computer chips that power AI that can be used to threaten national security. And the United States, in my opinion, rightfully, is really restricting how many of these chips that one company can sell to both China and the United States. And so adhering to those federal rules is going to cost them $5.5 billion take off their profit in the current 3-month period. So that's really taking a lot of money out of the tech part of the stock market yesterday. It looks like they're going to recover a little bit of it today. But folks, AI is, it sounds like the Terminator movies. But if there is some really sensitive technology that NVIDIA is trying to sell to both China and the United States at the same time, that's not going to work. And this is actually a rare moment of agreement between the Trump administration and the previous Joe Biden team. They both had put in some very serious restrictions on this. And it's going to cost NVIDIA money, and rightfully so, I think, to keep America safe. Now, as promised, President Trump did drop in on those trade talks yesterday between the U.S. and Japan at the White House. And he posted a positive take on the progress so far on his social media platform, Truth Social. He said the countries have to move quickly to deal with the U.S. Because, as he and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent have to say, the first countries to make new deals with the U.S. will have something called, quote, first mover advantage. In other words, they're going to get a better deal. And that is what's going on right now. So let's see if Japan signs on the dotted line in the coming days. Now, there's a fascinating new report in the Wall Street Journal. I find it fascinating because even though it's not really a shocker, it really gets in some interesting details about that antitrust case that's currently going on in the court right now that the Federal Trade Commission is trying against Facebook parent Meta. Remember, Meta owns Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Now, according to this article, Mark Zuckerberg, remember when he gave $1 million, donated $1 million for the Trump inauguration parties and process? And remember when he showed up at the inauguration? And remember when he posted that video saying, hey, we were too unfair in our censorship practices at Facebook. We're going to work on that. And a lot of people were saying, hey, Facebook is getting in line and doing some good stuff. But I think most of us gave that the side eye and didn't really trust it. Well, it turns out, according to the Wall Street Journal, that Mark Zuckerberg thought those things, $1 million, what is that, like 2 cents out of his pocket, maybe less, and making a video saying they're going to censor less, which I have yet to see, by the way. He apparently thought that would get Trump on his side as the Federal Trade Commission came to Facebook Meta and said, we want you to pay a $30 billion fine based on all this evidence we have that you're acting like a monopoly, that you're buying up small competitors, that you're crushing the competition illegally. Now, apparently, Mark Zuckerberg and Meta made a counteroffer to that $30 billion fine that was apparently a joke, maybe only a couple of $1 billion, much, much less than the federal government was asking. And Zuckerberg thought that because he'd been kissing up to Trump a little bit, that he was going to get some kind of an excuse for all of this, that somehow Trump would back him up. not happening and this case is going on. Anyway, if you're going to try to bribe somebody or at least kiss up to them, come up with more than $1 million when you have tens of billions of dollars in your pocket. Don't be cheap, Mark Zuckerberg. All right, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. It is time for Moving America, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company, artilleryteaco.com. Use promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. artilleryteaco.com, promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Amazon Autos, the company's online dealer marketplace. You know that thing that Amazon does? And you know what that means when Amazon gets into a business? Not good for the brick and mortar businesses. Well, here they go. They have added the ability to now lease a new car online. Previously, the car shopping site only offered financing options and cash payments secured with an online deposit to buy a car. Now shoppers can lease a new car from the comfort of their own homes. That is, as long as they lease a Hyundai. But Hyundai isn't exactly a small company. They sell a lot of cars every year, in case you haven't noticed. And that is the first and only car maker so far involved in this Amazon lease selling business. But guess what? There will be more to come, folks. Bet on it. And also bet on Amazon expanding its used car buying service that it rolled out just a couple of months ago. It basically copies the Carvana model, by the way. And I don't see how Carvana can survive that. So, of course, naturally, Wall Street told everybody a couple of weeks ago to invest in Carvana, to bail out the institutional investors who have a lot of Carvana shares. And they're trying to get you, mom and pop, to bail them out by buying those shares now. Don't buy it. That's my advice. New Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno at one point owned as many as 55 car dealerships. That's a lot of people waiting in the waiting room to get their car serviced. But anyway, when he speaks out about the tariffs on the auto industry, you know, you might want to listen. Either he's telling you the truth or he's got a real ruse going on. But he has said in the last couple of days that this car tariff, the effect on the auto industry from the tariff threats right now will either be just a blip that will be forgotten pretty soon, or won't really have an effect at all. And that's Bernie Moreno. Again, he's an Ohio senator, and yes, he's a Trump supporter and all that. But remember, this guy's life, this guy's bread and butter is selling cars, and he does not think this is going to have a long-lasting impact on the industry. That's pretty interesting. If you've been watching this program since it started in mid-December, you know we've had a little debate between me and the control room, or some people in the control, maybe they all agree with me, I don't know, about whether or not the Mazda Miata is a chick car. Now, that's not saying it's a bad car. It's just a chick car. You got to buy it for, or have a very attractive woman buy it for herself, or buy it for them. That's what I think. Well, and I think I'm right about that. But that's not the end of the story, because it turns out Mazda is going to power up that car in the biggest way they've done in many, many years. They are going to, in the next year or so, put in a 2.5 liter version of Mazda's Skyactiv Z engine into the new Miata. I think the 2027 is going to be the first year that they offer that much bigger engine. That's almost a full liter larger than the original 1.6 liter Miata engine. And yes, it'll still be bolted to a manual transmission. So if you like that, you got that. I still say it's a chick car, but that's not a bad thing if you are a chick. And the Miata is still a pretty looking car. I got to give them that. And now for the latest version of Moving America's Mad Misadventures on the Road. Now I want you to check out this video of a rookie Minnesota State Trooper very clumsily hitting a car while the patrol car he was driving tried to make a blind U-turn to pursue a speeding driver going the other way. He clips that red car over there. Now, this wasn't just a little fender bender. The car had some serious damage, and the teenage daughter of the driver of that car was injured. Not really very severely, but injured and required hospital care. Here's this situation. Get this. The state of Minnesota is continuing to claim immunity from the accident and won't even discipline the rookie cop who made this boneheaded move. Now, maybe Governor Tim Walz will get involved, but that's only if he finds out the victims were on their way to a protest that torched stores in downtown Minneapolis. Remember, Tim Walz made sure that that was allowed. Stay tuned. I have a feeling now that this story is getting national attention by me and a few other folks that maybe this family will get some kind of payment. They deserve it. That was a really, really scary accident. Could have been a lot worse. Tax day may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just beginning. If you missed the April 15th deadline or still owe back taxes, the IRS is ramping up enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse. With over 5,000 new tax liens filed daily, and tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, the IRS is applying pressure at levels we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative scrutiny means collections are moving fast. The good news? There's still time for Tax Network USA to help. Self-employed or a business owner, even if your books are a mess, they've got it covered. The Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track fast. Even after the deadline, it's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is completely free, and acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. You may have missed April 15th, but you haven't run out of options. Let Tax Network USA help before the IRS makes the next move. Coming up, hey, remember this video of the big Pennsylvania coal plant implosion I showed you earlier this month? Well, all those new AI facilities President Trump is helping to bring to America won't power themselves, folks. But maybe that's the whole point. We'll look into this further when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. It's Thursday, April 27th. Here are some of this morning's top stories. This just keeps getting better or worse. It turns out the illegal alien Senator Chris Van Hollen is sacrificing everything for had multiple requests for orders of protection against him from his wife, who says he beat her multiple times. And speaking of Van Hollen, one of his actual citizen constituents is calling him out big time. No comment yet from New York Attorney General Letitia James as the Trump Housing Department identifies what sure looks like mortgage fraud. Uh-oh. I wonder if she regrets politicizing our precious legal code now. She should. There may be some lunatics out there in America, and the Justice Department and the Department of Education aren't having any more of it anymore. They are suing Maine's governor, who might be potentially mentally ill. Her name is Janet Mills. She continues to defy the White House and the overwhelming majority of her own constituents as she chooses to die on the hill of allowing boys in girls' sports. And President Trump sounds an optimistic tone. After attending the White House trade talks with Japan, Wall Street still isn't buying it, but then again, Wall Street likes the trade imbalances just as they are. American Sunrise Early Edition continues now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. It is a Thursday, specifically Maundy Thursday for those of you observing Holy Week. Of course, a lot of us also still observing Passover. This is really a great time of year where you have two of the world's great religions celebrating at the same time. It's a really nice time. I hope a lot of you already have wonderful plans for this upcoming weekend, which again is still Passover, but also will be, of course, Easter weekend. Joining me right now is Solar Bank President and CEO, Dr. Richard Liu. And Dr. Liu, I think people are missing a very big part of this NVIDIA story. Remember, that's a big story here in the United States this week. That President Trump and the Trump administration working with NVIDIA, the big AI chip maker, for those of you who don't know the name of that company, it's been dominant on Wall Street for a while. You can't turn on financial news over the last 4 years and not hear NVIDIA 6 times a day. So I don't hold it against you if you're not a junkie of financial news TV. But it is a very important company, and they're going to make this $500 billion investment in AI in this country. But I want you to take a look at this. I want you to take a look at this video because this is something that I showed my viewers maybe a couple of weeks ago. This is what used to be a coal plant in Homer, Pennsylvania. It used to be at one point the biggest energy producing coal plant in all of Pennsylvania, which is saying something because Pennsylvania is such a big coal state, or at least it was. And you know what they're going to replace this coal plant with? They're going to replace it with an AI processing center. So, of course, the first question is, how are you going to power that thing up? AI requires a lot more power than just the old school electric and power grid. And so my question to you, Dr. Liu, is it possible that in addition to the great work that the Trump administration did to get NVIDIA to come to the United States and make this big investment, this at the end of the day is really about energy? They want to be in a country, unlike China, because China doesn't have the energy resources that the United States has. They want to be in a country that has oil. They want to be in a country that has natural gas. They want to be in a country that might be able to start building a lot of nuclear plants again, and also has things like solar and wind as a backup for consumers. I mean, this is really about energy, isn't it, Dr. Liu?
Well, Jake, it's absolutely correct. Mr. President wants to make Americans a energy dominant country, and it's not only just to keep our lights on, but also most importantly to keep us connected. AI needs a lot of energy. It's the lifeblood. But I would say the more complex the AI model with this new investment, the more energy you will need, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing, if you look at this one, they all be housed in a data center and they need a good operating environment. But all of those ones is a part of the cost for AI, so which brought a lot of investment, including SolarBank is investing this infrastructure and to power it with renewable energies. So in my view, I would say AI will help us to make the grid more smarter, more efficient, more powerful, but actually it pushes innovation so that going forward, we not only have a powerful AI to power our daily lives, but also makes the energy more efficient and more, I would say, smarter.
Dr. Liu, you're a very polite and diplomatic man, because the way that I would put it is that for years, people like you and me were banging on the table for a stronger energy grid. We wanted a safer energy grid. Not enough people in politics listened to us. But then when AI came in and these big companies came in with all their big tech money and they asked for it, poof, they got it really quickly. Because, I showed that plant being imploded in Pennsylvania last month. It is being replaced not only by this AI center, but they're building a big natural gas plant to replace that and give it the power. And so states like Pennsylvania, which has always been friendly to natural gas and fracking, but maybe my state of New York will open up their eyes and become more friendly to fracking when they see this and realize that natural gas is a lot cleaner and we need it. So when the big tech billionaires came in and said, we need more power, they suddenly got it, even though we spent a lot of time, people like you and me and just regular citizens saying, hey, you got to fix this grid, and everyone was just kind of sleeping on it. Now when the big bucks come in, the government does something, but I guess we'll take what we can get. Now, speaking of what we're getting right now, of course, Dr. Liu, we're in the middle of a tariff war. This is going back and forth. And I want you to let me know and let our viewers know how you think the tariffs right now is affecting maybe, and maybe it's not all negative, the energy supply, both here in the United States and around the world.
Jake, tariff is absolutely on everyone's mindset. It has immediate challenges. As you mentioned, also it certainly has the longer term opportunities. If you look at this impact, there's a lot. There's a cost structural, there's a supply chain, there's a strategic planning. We produce power, we use lots of components. With tariff on it, certainly the cost will increase. It forces the utility to pass on the higher cost to consumers. So you can feel it immediately. It also will slow down the energy transition because, when you're making a structural shift, it takes time, right? So if you look at all of those ones, it causes market volatility, as we all say, there's cost increase. But I would say all of those ones over time, effectively, it would use this disruption of the global supply chain to, I would say, you can see, infuse us or force us to invest in the domestic production, like what we do with domestic content suppliers such as QCell, to gradually move our procurement from international market to the domestic market. So maybe short-term pain, long-term gain, I guess, Jack?
Yeah. No, I mean, this is interesting. I mean, how many times? This is something that isn't new. I mean, for those of you who study your World War II history, I mean, Japan, one of the big reasons why they were so belligerent in their region is they didn't have a petroleum source. And so they were basically conquering countries so they could get more power. I mean, honestly, this is not new. And relying too much on foreign countries for our energy, no matter what kind it is foolish. And it's just as foolish as sending all of our manufacturing overseas. Dr. Liu, I want to get back to NVIDIA because President Trump, he has something to say about this deal. And there's something specific I want to focus on. Listen to this.
Well, it's one of the biggest announcements you'll ever hear because NVIDIA, as you know, controls that almost the entire sector, which is one of the most important sectors in the world between chips and semiconductors and everything else. And they're the biggest, and the other biggest we already have coming in and spending $300 billion, as you know. They announced 2 weeks ago. But NVIDIA is so highly respected, and this was an announcement a lot of people, I knew it was going to happen, but not to the extent that it happened. It's big. And the reason they did it is because of the election on November 5th. And because of a thing called tariffs, as I say, the most beautiful word in the dictionary. After love, God, relationship, the press actually hit me and said, tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. What about family, love, God? So I got hit even on that. You understand? I said, okay. So now I say it's my fifth most favorite word because they get you on anything. But that NVIDIA, it's one of the great companies of the world, modern, super modern companies, controls segments that nobody, sort of controls the world in a sense, and they're coming in here in the biggest way with hundreds of billions of dollars, not like millions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, and I'm honored by it. And I want to thank Jensen and all of the people that we deal with. They're great people, they're brilliant people. And without tariffs, they wouldn't be doing it. Thank you very much.
All right. So, of course, love is more important than energy. But what if I really love energy, Dr. Liu? But all kidding aside, this is a relationship story. And I just want to ask about, I know you made the point in some of your other appearances in this program about how the U.S. and its allies, like Canada, I know we're having trouble with Canada right now, can forge a strong energy relationship because, frankly, even before this tariff thing started, I think that the Biden team, the previous administration, really stuck it to Canada when, they ended the Keystone Pipeline and things like that. And honestly, for all the anger that Canada is showing right now to the United States, I think the fact that we're restarting with the Keystone Pipeline and things like that really shows that this administration has a better relationship. Call it love, call it relationship, whatever, with Canada. And that's my feeling.
Jake, maybe we can call it tough love. I'm in Canada for 35 years. We are full of natural gas, from oil and gas. I worked for Enbridge. The pipeline from that company ships a large amount of fossil fuels to the States. And I would say at this moment, life was good, but it was this tariff that Mr. President want to reset the, I would say, the industry, and then we're restarting it for a better future. He talked about the tariff is the lovely word for change. Yes, I think, we used to make a great, powerful chips in the States long time ago, but over time, the world shift, manufacturing goes different places. Now, people look at the economy, look at profit, look at convenience, look at the political influence, and they're moving back. Is it because of a tariff? Is it because of love? Jake, I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, well, listen, there can be no freedom without economic freedom. That's what Margaret Thatcher said, and I would add to that, without energy freedom. And both the United States, Canada, everybody, all of our allies need it. Ask Ukraine, ask Eastern Europe. They rely on that. It's just incredible that we've had administrations that have taken away our energy independence. Dr. Richard Liu, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jake. See you.
All right, coming up, it's not just Maine. Colorado is in the midst of debating a pro-trans rights law that would be the most radical in the country. Is it the next state that will face the Trump administration's efforts to protect girls' sports? T. Bates will join us live from Colorado, by the way, when we come back. Live look at St. Paul, Minnesota. Speaking of Minnesota, how the heck did the Mets just lose 2 straight games to the Minnesota Twins? I'm still bitter, everyone. Welcome back. T. Bates is with us. He's going to help me get over my bitterness about the Mets and get me started on another thing I might get bitter about, and that is, hey, it's not just Maine. Look, folks, every single poll, when they bother to take polls, in every single state, no matter how red or blue it is, shows that the overwhelming majority of the voters want to protect girls' sports, don't want boys in the girls' locker room, and at the same time, Americans are still compassionate people. We don't want to overly discriminate against people who are going through something with the whole transition type thing. We're not looking to make life any harder for them, but we have to protect girls' sports in particular. And so now, Terrance, your state of Colorado is considering what most people consider to be what would be the most radical trans law in America that would include possibly taking children away from parents if they do something called dead naming of their children. I know you were looking that up this morning, so please enlighten the viewers about what that means.
Yeah, so is it just me, or does the term itself, is it the term itself kind of dark? So dead naming is basically, you're a parent, you've had a child, your child was a boy, let's say in this instance, and you called him Tom. Well, Tom decides that he is now a girl, and he's not Tom, but he's Thomasina. Yet you as the parent continue to call him Tom. Well, now, if you're in a custody dispute, for instance, if you call Tom Tom and not Thomasina, it's considered coercion, and you potentially could lose custody of Tom, who you named, because you've misnamed him, and so that's dead naming, calling someone a different name or their birth name as opposed to the name that they want to go by. All of this, I just think, as a parent, first of all, is concerning, but even from a public standpoint, I live here in Colorado. No one's talking about this. No one really cares. There are bigger fish to fry here in the state of Colorado as opposed to dead naming and misgendering. It's just not a major issue for most people here in this state, Jake.
Yeah, and that's how they get it under the radar. And listen, it's Holy Week, so I'm going to say this. It sounds new, but there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to taking the authority of parents away from their children. It started with child sacrifice in ancient times. The Soviet Union did it. That is the ultimate power, and that is why statist Democrats love transgender laws, because it destroys the power of parenting, which people in government have wanted since the beginning of time. T. Bates is coming up with the rest of the team with American Sunrise for the next 2 hours. I'll see you tomorrow on Early Edition. Thanks for watching.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday. Last night, it was Marjorie Taylor Greene who had to deal with this as she was talking to her constituents. Watch this.
This is organized chaos, for sure, and these are people that are being basically jetted in from other places. We'll see if that turns out to be the case, but they are from Dallas, Texas.
George Soros really started this infestation of busing people around the country to do these sort of disruptions, and whether his money is behind this in particular or not, we can't know, but it's likely. And even if it isn't his money, it is he who started this. And I think that there has to be a way. You never want the long arm of the law, but there has to be a way to address this so severely. President Trump set to meet, as we mentioned, with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni tomorrow. Tariffs and trade deals should be a top priority.
I think this is going to be a terrific day. I think Giorgia Meloni is if anything, she's MAGA for leaders among European leaders. And I think they're going to cut a deal. I think they will work out a deal. At least with Italy, who has a $44 billion trade deficit with us, and possibly for the entire EU. Donald Trump's not going to wait. He wants to get deals done.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says when it comes to Iran, the U.S. is prepared to, quote, go far, deep, and big if negotiations with Tehran fall apart.
If Iran does sign something, you should keep a very close eye on it, and it would take in-person inspectors permanently stationed in Iran in order to verify that they're doing what they said they do, if you can reach a deal at all.
During a recent segment on MSNBC, Wallace spoke about the so-called manosphere of conservative podcasts and blogs and accused President Trump somehow of emasculating Americans by shrinking their buying power.
By being a mom or a dad and not being able to afford the new pair of sneakers or the brand new gear for your kid who wants to play basketball or baseball, or your daughter who's a gymnast. There is nothing that takes away your sense of an ability to get ahead more than axing off your buying power.
It makes no sense. You can have all kinds of policy debates about the president's tariffs, but appealing to emotion like that with just some bizarre fake anecdote is not how you do it.
Ahead on American Sunrise, Judge James Boasberg says he has found probable cause to hold the Trump administration in contempt for the use of deportation flights. Where will this go? Plus, Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the Trump administration's lawsuit against the state of Maine for not complying with the ban on men and women's sports. Where is all of this headed? And finally, New York Attorney General Letitia James could be facing prosecution for mortgage fraud. How likely is this to get to trial? Those stories and more as American Sunrise starts right now.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Good morning, everybody. I am Dr. Gina. We are live with you from the Palm Beaches. Let's bring in Emily Finn, who you just saw. I'm not sure why I'm bringing her in, but she is here today for David Brody. And also we have T. Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Excited to be here, you guys.
We look like we are celebrating Easter. I mean, I guess it's appropriate. The risen Christ. It is the holiest week of the year for Christians. And these are some of the colors that represent that. So I don't know how we did that, but it looks like we coordinated.
We do. We look like an Easter basket.
Yes.
I'm going to have to go something really outrageous. You know, typically for us at our church, it's very colorful on Easter, like all the pastels, like someone just pulled out the crayon kit. So I'm going to have to find like the most outrageous pastel thing I've got tomorrow, and I'm going to wear it. Stand
but now,
by.
wait, Terrance,
in fact, you just motivated.
Do they do the hats and the whole thing at your church?
There are times. I guess it depends on the year, but yeah, it's, you know, everyone pulls out their best Easter outfit. You've got all the colors, and you know, everyone comes dressed to the nines, and then the Bates family rolls in with jeans and flip flops. And like, look, it's not how you come; it's the fact that you're here. But that's a whole nother issue. Hey guys, look, there's a lot to talk about this morning, and I just read an article this morning that I wanted to bring up, and it really kind of, I think, solidified why President Trump is implementing his tariff plan. Basically, this says that Japan has a $63 billion trade surplus with the United States. So in other words, they send us $63 billion more worth of products than we're able to sell in Japan, which I think, again, speaks to why President Trump is implementing his tariffs. And all of this, of course, comes after he met with Japanese trade officials yesterday. And today, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni will be at the White House talking about trade issue as well, Dr. Gina. But I think that number is just huge. $63 billion surplus with the United States. Here's what I failed to mention, Dr. Gina. The rest of the world, there's a deficit. So Japan has a deficit in trading with the rest of the world, but with us, the United States, its ally, $63 billion surplus. Really?
You know, thank God that there aren't world courts making decisions. But if there were a court who was looking at this is so fundamental in terms of fairness, what the president is doing right now, that he seems heroic to those of us in MAGA who've been screaming about this for years. But there's just almost no argument, Emily, on the fairness, the absolute justice of some president coming along and leveling the playing field for Americans that has been so unfair and unjust for so many years. This is fundamental.
Absolutely, Gina. And like you said, Republicans have been screaming this for years, and finally President Trump is acting on it. I mean, this is exactly what he campaigns on, this fairness that you talk about, Gina. And this is just promises made, promises kept. He's going to continue down this path with these tariffs because he knows that this is exactly what the American people need, Terrance.
Yeah.
No, well, absolutely.
Let's check out today's.
Go ahead, Dr. Gina.
Usually you throw me to the Bible first. That is true. But today,
I was on my way, but you preempted me. It's all good.
So I'm doing it. Let's check out today's Bible verse. It's from Isaiah, book 41, verse 10. It says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, and yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand." And I love that one. And I love also going back and looking at, do you guys ever do this? Do like an exegesis on looking at specific words like my righteous hand. Like, where do the words right and righteous come from in all the historic texts? I love reading that stuff. I don't know if you guys do, but I nerd out on that, and perhaps that says a lot about me. Also nerd out on politics every day, just like this audience does. Federal Judge James Boasberg is moving to hold the Trump administration in contempt over its use of deportation flights. Boasberg says that the court determined that the administration is willfully disregarding an order to not use the Alien Enemies Act. Boasberg also cited some social media posts from the Trump administration officials flouting the deportation flights. The Supreme Court did lift the order blocking the use of Alien Enemies Act with some provisions for due process. We've seen a lot about that. We saw Trump come right back at that directly yesterday. We're going to talk more about that. Let's bring in RAV Chief White House Correspondent Brian Glynn. Brian, you saw the Trump administration fire right back at this with a special press conference yesterday with an angel mom who lost her beautiful daughter. Tell us what happened at the White House yesterday. This was really a direct response. I believe that she actually requested this presser, if I'm not mistaken. But at the same time, this was a direct fire back across the bow saying, hey, yeah, when we don't deal with these foreign terrorist criminals, these are the things that happen, not being reported in the news. Right, Brian?
You're absolutely right, Dr. Gina. The moment yesterday in that briefing room was an experience that I've never had for the short time that I've been here. You could hear a pin drop as Patty Moreland laid out the story of how her daughter Rachel was brutally murdered, raped, assaulted, drugged through bushes, scratches on her, and the media, in my opinion, was shamed. Their heads staring at the ground, listening to everything. But I just question when they talk about due process, where are the victims' due process in all of this? We need to make sure that we get these violent criminals the hell out of our country. And anyone that stands in the way right now, in my opinion, be it a judge, the media, the Democrats, is a threat to this country.
Yeah.
Brian, yesterday morning around this time, maybe a little bit later, we took a live news conference from the Department of Justice. Here's the CBS headline on the issue. It says the DOJ files lawsuit against Maine claiming the state violated Title IX by failing to protect women in women's sports. Again, we heard the remarks live from Pam Bondi and others, and now this lawsuit seems to be moving forward. What I find interesting here is that an interpretation of Title IX decades later is really at the heart of this issue. Maine interprets it one way, the Trump administration interprets it another way, and in the middle are young girls and women who are simply trying to play a sport that's now unfortunately being infringed upon by transgender women.
Yeah, and I think this is a 90-10 issue at best. It could be almost a 98-2% issue with the American people. The fact that we are discussing this, the fact that the state of Maine, shame on them, and this developed back in February. If you remember the exchange that President Trump had with that governor back and forth, and she said, "I'll see you in court." He says, I look forward to that, actually. The court is no stranger to President Trump, and so they will continue to fight this. But I think this is what's going to be a trend that we see, that whenever the Democrat Party does not like any of these executive orders or any of these things that seem to be against what they believe in, what do? Well, they found out that, burning cities down and looting and rioting, that can only go so far. So they'll just take this stuff to the court, and they'll tie all these issues up in the court. Meanwhile, your young girls are being basically taken advantage of by these biological men playing in their sport. It's wrong, and it should stop, and shame on Maine for wanting to continue to not protect the women and girls in their state.
Absolutely, Brian. It is wrong, and shame on Maine. And thank God that the Trump administration is sticking true to how they feel about this. I mean, it is definitely protecting young women all across the country. Now, Brian, we want to get your take on this as well. New York Attorney General Letitia James was referred for prosecution to the Justice Department for claims of mortgage fraud. What more can you tell us about this?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. She has a house, I believe, in Norfolk, Virginia. She designated that as her primary residence, even though she works in New York. Also, and that was for to get a lower mortgage rate. And then also she claimed that she bought a unit that had more units than it was registered to have. I think it was a 3-unit complex. It had 4 units. That was also to work in her advantage. But, you know, this is just one of the examples of how hypocritical the left has been, and Letitia James as well, claiming that President Trump had all of this fraud and overvaluated the estimate of his property in order for tax purposes and other means. So where this goes, I don't know. Obviously, everyone's in defensive mode right now, but it does not surprise me that a story like this, that we're talking about it today, about a judge who claimed that President Trump was corrupt. Well, the corruption lies within, and I think we've all kind of known that. But it will play out, and we'll see where the proof is.
You know, Brian, just hearing these stories coming together, talking about the women who have really been abused in locker rooms, on playing fields, by men being in women's sports, and then thinking back again to the Marin family and this press conference yesterday. It's funny in a horrible way, how the left just seems to be okay with these straight up abusive women. I wonder what's happened in our culture. Yesterday in that press briefing, I thought there was a very poignant moment where Patty Marin, Rachel Marin's mother, Rachel was a mother of 5, let's not forget. And how is the left depicting her in media reports? How is the left depicting the murderer rapist in media reports? They're calling him a Maryland father. Are you kidding me? So Rachel Marin's mother had a moment with reporters at the end of this press briefing where she stunned them after her story by turning around and telling them exactly what is wrong with the depiction of her daughter, mother of 5, raped and murdered, not an inch of her body that didn't have a hole, a bruise, a cut, or a contusion on it. Not an inch of her body. Her face bashed in on the left side, the back side, the front, the right. I mean, these aren't things we want to talk about in the morning on a morning show. But it needs to be said, Brian, because she had a message for reporters who were referring to this illegal terrorist MS-13 member as a Maryland father. Here's her message.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So sorry for your loss. Thank you. Please tell the truth. Tell the truth. Yeah. Tell how violent it really is. This is about protecting our children. It's more than just politics or votes or just anything. It's about national security, protecting Americans, protecting our children. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here.
It was Caroline Leavitt that announced before this the wrongful depiction of this horrendous man who did this to this mother of 5. I still can't get over the way that the media doesn't want to tell the truth. And all the mother's asking, Brian, is for them to tell the truth. Will they?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think that moment that we experienced in that briefing room where every reporter in there, and I did a great deal of looking around the room to really see if these people were understanding what was being communicated there from the podium. And I really think they did. I think they were affected by that. But let's see what happens later today, tonight, tomorrow, when they continue this narrative. And the next time Caroline Leavitt has a briefing in that room, let's hear what those questions are worded. Let's see how they're phrasing all of this, and let's see if their narrative has changed. I'm betting that it will not, and that's the state of our media right now, unfortunately. But I felt it resonated with me, made me angry, to be quite honest with you. I wanted to shout at every single one of them in there, but
I still do, and it makes me mad that some of the networks didn't even run this press briefing. I conflated stories. The Maryland man isn't the Morin murder. It's the same thing, though, Brian. It's the same thing. He's the next murderer, right? Next murderer up to bat as the left excuses. And Brian Glenn, thanks for your time. Coming up, we check out the hottest headlines from the Rap Newsroom with T. Bates. And we'll be right back with more.
The association. This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. Coming up later in the show, we'll be taking a closer look at that civil lawsuit that Attorney General Pam Bondi has filed against the state of Maine. This all has to do with transgenders in women's sports. Bondi is saying that Maine has failed to protect women in women's sports. She says that the Maine Department of Education allegedly violated Title IX. And so they are going to be investigating and taking a closer look at this. And we'll be taking a closer look at it later in the show. But first, Terrance Bates is standing by with the latest headlines from the Real America's Voice newsroom, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
More tariff talk is on tap for President Trump today as he welcomes Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to the White House. Meloni is expected to lobby the president for better trade terms between her country and the United States. She's also been dispatched to negotiate better tariff terms for the European Union, reportedly due to her strong relationship with President Trump. Today's meeting comes on the heels of Mr. Trump hosting a Japanese trade delegation on Wednesday. In this post on Truth Social, the president writing that big progress was made. Just this morning, by the way, Japan reported a global trade deficit of $37 billion. It, by the way, is the fourth straight year of deficits for that country. However, when it comes to the United States, Japan enjoys a $63 billion trade surplus. Japan is now looking to make a deal in lieu of having to pay a 24% reciprocal tariff. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is out with a new report on autism, which finds a, quote, unrelenting upward trend in diagnoses among American children. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. calls autism an epidemic, as data shows 1 in 31 U.S. children have the disorder. Boys continue to be diagnosed at higher rates than girls, with Asian American, Pacific Islander, American Indian, Alaska Native, and Black children having the highest rates.
This is a preventable disease. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. They can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this.
Data from 2020 shows that 1 in 36 children were diagnosed with autism then, compared to 1 in 31 just a couple of years later. Those numbers continue to hold steady. School records also show that more kids are being diagnosed between 4 and 8 years old these days nationwide. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more headlines coming your way shortly, including Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro making his first public appearance since investigators released a motive for the firebombing of the governor's mansion. Stay tuned for the very latest on this still developing story. Next, though, President Trump's latest executive order for the healthcare industry. What's in it? Right now, let's take a quick look at this day in history. It was on this day in 1961 that 1,400 Cuban exiles landed in the Bay of Pigs in a doomed attempt to overthrow Fidel Castro. The CIA helped finance and train a group of Cuban refugees to overthrow the Castro regime. Castro had used anti-American rhetoric and attacked U.S. companies since he came to power in January of 1959. President Dwight D. Eisenhower first ordered the program, but President John F. Kennedy carried it out in 1961. The rebellion unfortunately failed, and Castro used it to solidify his power in Cuba. More American Sunrise coming your way in 2 minutes.
Did you know the AARP, yes, the group claiming to support seniors, has promoted Drag Queen Story Hour? They also backed Obamacare, opposed the Trump tax cuts, and continue to support policies that undermine faith, family, and freedom. That's why there's AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, the conservative alternative to AARP. AMAC is fighting for Social Security, election integrity, and the Judeo-Christian values that built this nation. Plus, members get great benefits, discounts, insurance, and the AMAC magazine, filled with real news and conservative insight. And guess what? Anyone can join, no matter your age. Right now, you can get a 5-year AMAC membership for just $31. That's 47% off the regular price. But don't wait. The special offer ends April 30th. So if you care about faith, freedom, and the future of America, go to amac.us/sunrise and join the fight. That's amac.us/sunrise. All right. For more, let's bring in Dr. Gina and Terrance here. You know, you guys, we have been hearing so much about this this illegal immigrant that came to the U.S. And was recently deported. Democrats are rallying behind him. You know, Democrats, I want to tell them, pick better heroes, right? They were also rallying behind the shooter that killed Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO. I mean, like I said, pick better heroes. This is getting kind of out of control, you guys.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't seem to matter how you ask the question. The Democrats revert back to tired old talking points that are defending criminals. And where is the defense, as you said, Emily, in the first block? Where is the defense for the victims? Where is the empathy for the victims? Where is the humanizing of the victims in the leftist media? They don't do it. And this is why they've completely lost touch with the American people. Terrance, this is why, as you say every single day, people just cannot find anything with which to identify with the Democrat Party anymore. They've become the party of the criminals, the insane, and the haters, really, the party really of hate.
Yeah. Dr. Gina, I'm going to answer your question. I realize it was a rhetorical one, but where is the compassion, you asked? I'm paraphrasing, but that's generally the question. Well, the compassion is in the White House. The compassion is on the right. That's where Americans are finding that compassion. That's where Americans are finding common sense as it relates to particularly immigrants who come to this country illegally and then victimize Americans. And I would say, Dr. Gina, even bigger, the compassion is that the focus is on helping Americans, supporting Americans, supporting people whose birth country this is and who are citizens here. That's where the real compassion is. That's where the real focus is, on the right. And I think that's why we saw that big victory on November 5th and why there are so many Americans who are now understanding and agreeing with President Trump's platform and supporting it, Dr. Gina and Emily.
Absolutely. But Terrance and Emily, what's the answer for the Democrat Party? I mean, these are not American values. These are not ideals Americans can relate to. And so it just seems like they get more and more left. Now it looks like AOC is taking over the party, Emily.
You're absolutely right. AOC, Bernie Sanders, Jasmine Crockett. I mean, they're the ones getting the most attention, and they are the most radical on the left. You know, we were reporting yesterday that even Bill Maher is saying that the Democrats may become obsolete if they don't take a look in the mirror and really understand why their policies aren't resonating with the American people. Terrance, you're absolutely correct. You know, on November 5th of last year, the American people gave a mandate to President Trump, and he has done nothing but deliver on all of the promises that he campaigned on, including when it comes to immigration, probably most successfully when it comes to immigration. You see what Tom Homan is doing with all of these deportations across the country. I think this is something that the American people definitely want. They want to be safe in this country, and this is why they elected President Trump, Terrance and Gina.
Dr. Gina, you have often said, and we agree on this, that we'd like to see the Democrat Party change its narrative, move closer to the center, just so that as a country, hopefully we can be better because we're discussing the issues from a foundation of common sense. And right now that's not happening from the Democrats. While we agree with that in principle, Dr. Gina, I would say this, play to your strengths. You know, I'm a sports guy, so I'm going to use the sports analogy. Play to your strengths. And right now, oh, really? You're going to cough on me when I'm coming up with this, Dr. Gina? I'm just messing with you. But right now, I think our strength is on the right. Our strength is focusing on common sense issues, focusing on issues that are going to help and support the common everyday American. And that's what the right is doing. So I couldn't care less what the left is doing. I couldn't care less what Democrats are doing because I am squarely focused on the things that are going to make our country better and, more importantly, make life better for my neighbors, make life better for me, make life better for my children, Dr. Gina.
Yeah. One more point on that, because I think we need to punctuate this. Every single time we talk about this, again, is following the money trail. I think Democrats, out on farms somewhere that have been Democrats forever, and their families were Democrats, and their grandpa was a Democrat sheriff and state representative, they're confounded. They're like, what is going on? Why is the party being controlled by people like Bernie Sanders, like AOC? The reason is because the big money, the George Soros money, is funding them. They're funding Antifa. They're funding Black Lives Matter. They're funding AOC and Bernie. And Bernie and AOC, are making millions and millions of dollars off of being Bernie and AOC, being these cult of personality leaders, which attract a very, very small, I would say, honestly, 2% maybe of the actual Democrat Party. The rest of this is it's all gaslighting. It's all AstroTurf. There's nothing real about it. It is funded by people like George Soros and by George Soros himself. That's it. So there's nothing to be confused about here. This isn't real Democrat politics happening. The real Democrats are just sitting there going, oh my gosh, what do we do? Because we can't grab the power because we don't have the money. It has become the party of the super rich billionaires, and even bigger, actually.
That's a really good point, Gina. Follow the money. I think a lot of Democrats are finally waking up and doing so. I mean, you see Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., they say that they didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left them, and now they are on the Republican team and fighting alongside President Trump in the White House. All right, there's still a lot more to come on American Sunrise. Coming up, more Pentagon advisors have been placed on leave after this leaks investigation. How damning is this? We have some answers next on American Sunrise.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. Thanks for joining us. Time now for today's health news, sponsored by the Wellness Company. And under the microscope today, President Trump signed a new executive order aimed at reducing the cost of prescription drugs. Trump's order will direct Congress to change provisions to allow negotiations on Medicare drug prices. The order does apply to small molecule drugs, for example, pills, and it would allow for negotiations on the products sooner rather than later. It could result in huge savings for those on Medicare and beyond. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. also working on these changes These are big, exciting changes. He put the PBMs in that EO as well. So we're very excited about that. If you pull those PBMs out, you expose them, that's where the real cost is. A lot of people want to blame Big Pharma and insurance, but watch those PBMs. As they become exposed, you will learn they are the ones taking all the profits through these rebates, and it will be an absolutely new day in America, as we know. And a new administration in Washington, D.C., a lot of excitement and optimism about the future. A lot of work to do, too, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system that isn't going to fix itself, that is for sure. The challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. And so now more than ever, you want to be prepared, and that's where the Wellness Company comes in. Their doctors are medical professionals. You can trust them, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, the travel kit, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. From flu to strep to COVID to bird flu, a trip to the beach, a trip overseas. Don't I know? The Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. Make America healthy again. You guys, it starts at home. Do your part. Protect the health of yourself and your family. Go to twc.health/RAV. That's twc.health/RAV and use the promo code RAV. That'll save you 10%. Terrance, 10%.
10%. See, I can't even say it right. Percent. I'll work on that. Hey, so look, guys, 3 Pentagon advisors in total have now been reportedly placed on leave. One top Pentagon advisor, his name is Dan Caldwell, was supposedly escorted out of the Pentagon earlier this week after he was brought up in an investigation into leaks at the Defense Department. He was placed on administrative leave for, quote, unauthorized disclosure. We're still awaiting more information on that particular case. For more, though, let's bring in former CIA operations officer and the senior vice president for strategic risk and intelligence of Continental Strategy, Rick De La Torre. Rick, good to see you, my friend. I'm curious, when we talk about the Defense Department and CIA and some of these other agents, the reality is some of the rank and file is left over from the past administration and previous administrations. So it seems to me that it would make sense that there might be some people in those administrations, in the rank and file, that don't necessarily have the best interest of the Trump administration at heart, and don't necessarily have the best for the United States at heart. It seems that would make sense.
Well, I think you're being too generous and kind in some of these descriptions. Yeah, no, there are certainly folks that take the politics too close to heart. They take it into the workplace. They don't leave it at the door. Over my career, I served presidents from different administrations, and my personal views, my personal politics were mine, and that never interfered with the work or what I was asked to do. Some folks, unfortunately, they can't do that. They're not professional enough. Now, I will say in this case, with these individuals at the Pentagon, look, leaks of classified material are no small matter, right? And this administration has made it abundantly and absolutely clear that they take them seriously. Protecting operational security, safeguarding sources, methods, ensuring internal discipline remains, right? All those things are essential. And we've seen too often what happens when unauthorized disclosures undermined the administration, diplomacy, or they can endanger lives. So yes, aggressive enforcement is a good thing. We need to do more of it. But let's also be honest, the same tough approach that has always been applied when the leakers are legacy bureaucrats, flag officers, or DC insiders who play nice with the establishment, those career officials, when they leak to the press or kneecap reforms so that they can sabotage policy that they personally disagree with, that accountability, unfortunately, tends to evaporate, and we saw that over the years with the last administration. These 3 individuals, I know 2 of them. They're respected veterans. They've been put on administrative leave as part of that internal probe. These aren't political operatives. They're not trusted. I think that you could classify them more as trusted reformers that were brought in to help the president, restore accountability and focus the Pentagon on being more lethal, not ideological, right? And are they guilty of something? Well, we don't know. And frankly, that's the point of these probes and investigations. Sometimes investigations uncover more serious things than anyone expected. And if that's the case here, then I'm confident the administration will do the right thing, right? We need to take leaks seriously, but we also need to apply the standard consistently. The rules can't change depending on who's leaking.
Rick, I'm sorry, I want to butt in. Dr. Gina, if you'll just allow me. So you know two of them. I caught that. I don't want to gloss that over. So your impressions of them when you heard the news about these accusations against them, what was your initial thought?
Well, like I said, I know them to be reformers. I know them to be veterans. I know them to care very deeply about the, about the Pentagon and about U.S. defense, and they're ideologically very much aligned with the White House. So, does that mean that there are people that are working there at the Pentagon or for them now, currently for them, that disagree with them? Possibly. That's certainly the case. But I'm confident in the Pentagon's capabilities to do these kinds of investigations professionally, to look into the matter. And if, there's been some wrongdoing on anyone's part, I'm also confident that they'll do the right thing and make the appropriate administrative decisions that need to be made.
President Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, has said Iran must stop and eliminate its nuclear enrichment program to reach a deal with the U.S. Witkoff says it's imperative that this happened, and any deal for peace, stability, and prosperity must include getting rid of these programs. More talks with Iran slated for this weekend. How likely is that to happen?
Oh, yeah, I know. I think the talks will continue. Look, if the mullahs want sanctions relief or even a seat at a diplomatic table, they're going to have to stop all the uranium enrichment. Not reduce it, not pause it, but they're going to have to eliminate it. And that's the Trump doctrine, and it's I don't believe it's a bluff. Now, Tehran naturally is throwing a fit, claiming enrichment is non-negotiable. That's fine. So is U.S. military action if they push far enough, right? We've been down this road except under Obama's administration. What they got was pallets of cash and a path to actually make a bomb. Under Trump, they got Soleimani taken out in a pinpoint strike. And that told the regime exactly where that red line was drawn and what happens when you cross it. So this isn't so much about diplomacy for diplomacy's sake. This is about denying a terrorist regime the tools that they require and the cash and resources they require to build a nuclear weapon. Maximum pressure only works when the enemy knows that the pressure won't stop. And this, this administration, I think, fully understands that. Iran can keep enriching uranium, or they can keep their economy, but they just can't have both. And if they inch towards a bomb, they won't even get to keep their nuclear facilities. That's obviously clear.
Rick De La Torre, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Attorney General Pam Bondi standing up for women's sports, filing a lawsuit against Maine for allowing transgenders to play. The latest in the battle between Governor Janet Mills and President Trump over this very issue. Also, later, as we continue to honor a Holy Week, we take a look at the meaning of Easter and why it is so important to celebrate. We'll be right back. right, welcome back. Time now to stay awake, not woke. This is brought to us by the 1775 Coffee Company. 1775 just launched Rejuvenate. This is such a cool idea. The first anti-aging coffee of its kind. You know how you get up in the morning and you put all that extra stuff in your coffee? Well, you don't have to because they did it for you. This is the first coffee infused with CAAKG, which is a clinically studied ingredient shown to support things like strength, energy, and healthy aging at the very cellular level. So as we age, CAAKG levels begin to drop. This leads to a slower recovery after workouts, less energy, feeling older than you should, right? 1775's Rejuvenate coffee, though, brings longevity support without changing a thing. Just better coffee. It does more for you. And right now, for a limited time only, you can get their longevity bundle. This is over $250 worth of premium coffee and gear for just $99. But here's the catch. They only made 1,000 of these bundles. And when they're gone, guess what? They're gone. But if you do right now, if you act right now, you get 2 bags of their Rejuvenate anti-aging coffee, a rare pea berry roast, one of the most elite beans on earth. Less than 5% of coffee crops worldwide are this pea berry. Also, exclusive 1775 merch you won't find in stores, made for people who still believe in America first. That's you. This is a small batch, single origin, roasted fresh every single week, right here in Miami. Just real coffee with one powerful, proven ingredient built to help you feel your best for longer. Head to 1775coffee.com/RAV. Grab your longevity bundle while it's still in stock. Yes, do it. All right, now that we are caffeinated, let's send it over to American Sunrise correspondent Emily Flynn.
Great.
Finn, why do I always want to say Flynn? It's the Emily Flynn. Yeah, I can't do it. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Gina. It is time to stay awake, not woke. And that's exactly what Attorney General Pam Bondi is doing in Maine. This week, Bondi filed a civil lawsuit against the state's Department of Education over, quote, failing to protect women in women's sports. She says the Maine DOE allegedly violated Title IX and is discriminating against women, announcing the lawsuit alongside Education Secretary Linda McMahon. Bondi says this is about preserving young women's personal safety. This move comes amid a tiff between President Trump and Maine's Governor Janet Mills. Back in February, President Trump signed an executive order banning transgenders from competing in women's sports. All right, let's bring in Dr. Gina and Terrance for more here. Gina, the governor issued a statement in response to Bondi's lawsuit, saying the Trump admin is, quote, bent on imposing its will instead of upholding the law. I mean, this is really hard to believe. Coming from a woman, Janet Mills, obviously, what is she doing in Maine? Has she lost her mind?
Well, again, I like to take it back to the fundamentals, Emily. This isn't about just someone being confusing or even deranged. She probably knows exactly what she's doing, and someone is probably paying her a pretty penny in some form, giving a relative a contract. This is how it's done. Giving a relative a contract, giving her some personal something that we won't be able to find, most likely. And if we do find it, no one will actually prosecute it. No one will actually go to prison, because that never seems to happen on that side, because they all protect each other. That's why everybody's so hostile about DOGE, because DOGE is kind of exposing some of this pay to play and some of these things that have been happening in government for a long time. So in this particular instance, I am quite sure this isn't what she really believes. This is what she is paid to believe. And I am certain, as details continue to unfold, just like we saw with Russia, just like we saw with the Biden crime family, right? We will begin to see things illuminated that tell us the whole story. And we'll know that, yes, indeed, she was paid to say that this is what she believes, because no woman in her right mind, no mother in her right mind could ever advocate for your children, your girls being put, you know what? Listen, I think most parents of kids who are confused about their gender wouldn't advocate for this. That's why really nobody believes this. It's all about the money, Terrance.
I'm hopeful that this case will really clarify Title IX, because right now Title IX is being used as a way to try and justify this sort of behavior. And I don't believe, based on my reading of Title IX, that it says anything or in any way legalizes or affirms the right of a transgender or a biological male to compete against women. The whole idea is to level the playing field for young girls and women, and I believe that is affirmed within Title IX. Hopefully, though, this case and this lawsuit being brought by the DOJ will affirm that, will confirm that, and will explicitly lay out to the entire country what Title IX truly is all about, and this won't be as big of an issue, or it won't be an issue in the long run.
Right.
That is my hope and my prayer.
As one final point that I hope that the legal case will take into consideration is what this actually does to the victims. The victims here are the gender mutilated, right, chemically castrated kids who then have extremely much higher rates of suicide after they've actually transitioned. What we're doing to our children is just horrendous in this whole thing, and I hope that that's considered. The humane side of this is considered in this this judgment.
Absolutely. And, you know, Janet Mills told President Trump, "I'll see you in court," and that is exactly what is happening now. That's exactly what's playing out. All right. Coming up, Christians across the U.S. are observing Holy Week ahead of Easter Sunday. But what is the real meaning of Easter, and how can we honor Jesus' sacrifice for us all? Let's discuss with Senior Pastor of Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church, Robert Pacienza, when we return.
God bless the USA.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. It is now time for our Moment of Faith, brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the God Bless the USA Bible. And in focus today, for Christians throughout America, Easter Sunday marks a day of celebration, remembering the resurrection, of course, of Jesus Christ. But what does the resurrection mean for Christians? Well, according to Senior Pastor of Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church, Robert Pacienza, the risen Jesus is the final authority, a revelation of who is finally in charge of world history. He joins us now to discuss. You know, it's such a beautiful, there's so much beautiful just history and faithful information, right, in this week. And I think a lot of people skip over the Saturday, the time where everyone was grieving and waiting on the risen Christ, right? Because they didn't know. And imagine being in that moment. And I think we all spend a lot of moments, Dr. Pacienza, on that Saturday, wondering, where is God? What am I doing here? Why does it feel like everything's moving slow? When is it going to change? Talk to us about this process that really the Easter holiday spells out for our everyday lives.
I'm so glad you asked that question. I think the silence of Saturday, as I often call it, is a great reminder for us that there are many times in our life where it seems like God is silent. It seems like God is absent. But particularly on that side, Saturday, in between Good Friday and Resurrection Sunday, God certainly was not silent. God was at work through the person and work of Jesus Christ, paying the price for our sins, defeating death and the grave, only to be raised from the dead again on that Sunday morning. But that Saturday was profound in Jesus completing his work through the cross and through his death. And although he was in the ground, he was fulfilling the prophecy, fulfilling the law, and fulfilling the promise that he would overcome one day death and the grave.
Yeah, another thing, Dr. Pacienza, that always bothers me about depictions of Easter, and aside from the commercialism of it all, whatever on that, we've talked about that ad nauseum, but is this depiction of Jesus Christ as some sort of skinny, effeminate, long-haired hippie? I don't know how else to put it. Describe to us the real Jesus on the cross.
Yeah, Jesus is the conquering hero, and he doesn't come into Jerusalem to defeat the Gentiles or the Roman Empire. He does something far greater. He defeats the forces of hell. He is the one that conquers the grave. He's the one that bounds Satan forever and allows us to know that he is, by way of his resurrection, the one who is crowned with all honor and glory as he departed this earth. He said, "All authority has been given to me." He is the one that has conquered the grave. He has conquered sin and death, and he is the one that is crowned Lord of all. And because he has all authority in heaven above and earth below, we realize that the risen Jesus is the sovereign Lord over all things.
Yeah, and someday every knee will bow and every tongue will confess this to be the truth. Dr. Pacienza, you say it so well. You have a lucky congregation, a blessed congregation. Happy Easter, happy resurrection to you and your family and your congregation, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, be sure to stay tuned to Rav on Easter Sunday for our special He is Risen. It's a message of hope. It will be on at 6 a.m. Eastern and at 10 p.m. Eastern time as well. Back with the second hour of American Sunrise just after this. Don't go away.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, this Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Coming up on the second hour of American Sunrise, federal judge James Boasberg says he has probable cause to hold the Trump administration in contempt over deportations. So where does the case go from this decision? Plus, President Donald Trump's job approval rating hits a new high. What made Trump's approval surge? Find out. Also, President Trump is making his position on China's tariffs crystal clear. The ball is in China's court. Will the CCP make a deal with the United States? We will discuss as the second hour of American Sunrise starts right now.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
We have breaking news to share with you.
politics,
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
we've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrance.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm Dr. G. We are live with you in the Palm Beaches. Let's bring in Emily Finn, who's going to change her last name to Flynn just so I can stop flubbing it. Yeah, on air. She's also here in our Palm Beach studio, and Terrance Bates, who is in our Denver newsroom.
Actually, it's Terrance. Please pronounce my first name correctly. Terrance, Dr. Gina.
Terrance.
We just, while you were gone, we added an accent at the end.
Okay, all right, we're good with this. We're good with this. No, it is nice to be in studio with Emily today. Emily Finn. I just have to pause, and then I can say it right. But if it rolls off my tongue, the Emily Flynn, Emily, I think it sounds so good. I think you should really consider it.
That is quite funny. You know, I'm very proud of my Irish heritage, proud of my last name. Gina, you were just there in Ireland. You probably ran into my cousins, all the Finns in Ireland.
I talked with all of them, Emily, and I mispronounced all of their names. So
you called them all
opportunity.
Flynn. Oh,
Yes,
no.
yes,
Oh, no.
Exactly.
All right, guys, let's get to some of the big talk of the day. And of course, tariffs is really front and center. More tariff talk on tap for President Trump today as he welcomes Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to the White House. Meloni is expected to lobby the president for better trade terms between her country and the United States. However, she has also been dispatched to negotiate better tariff terms for the European Union, reportedly due to her strong relationship with President Trump. Today's meeting comes on the heels of Mr. Trump hosting a Japanese trade delegation on Wednesday. In this post here on your screen from True Social, the president writing that big progress was made. And just this morning, Japan reported a global trade deficit of $37 billion. It's the fourth straight year of deficits for that country. Here's the big news, though, and the big asterisk. When it comes to the United States, Japan enjoys a $63 billion trade surplus. Japan is now looking to make a deal in lieu of having to pay a 24% reciprocal tariff. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is out with a new report on autism, which finds a, quote, unrelenting upward trend in diagnoses among American children. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. calls autism an epidemic, as data shows 1 in 31 U.S. children now have the disorder. Boys continue to be diagnosed at higher rates than girls, with Asian American, Pacific Islander, American Indian, Alaska Native, and Black children having the highest rates.
This is a preventable disease. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. They can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this.
Data from 2020 shows 1 in 36 children were diagnosed with autism then. That compares to 1 in 31 just 2 years later. Those numbers hold tight today. School records also show that more kids are being diagnosed between 4 and 8 years old nationwide. The tension between the Trump administration and U.S. District Judge James Boasberg takes on a new layer, as the judge could slap some members of the administration with criminal contempt charges. In a ruling handed down Wednesday, Judge Boasberg writes there is, quote, probable cause to hold officials in criminal contempt of court for demonstrating, quote, willful disregard for his March 15th order barring deportations to El Salvador under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act. However, he goes on to say the Trump administration can still avoid being held in contempt by taking steps to comply with his order, specifically allowing the deported immigrants to challenge their removals in court. While the administration is appealing the ruling, the judge says the administration has until next week to outline what steps it will take or identify the officials who decided to disregard his order. That's a quick check of the headlines. I'll have more headlines coming your way in just a little bit. Now, let's get you back to Dr. Gina.
All right, Terrance, thank you so much. Terrance, federal judge James Boasberg says he found probable cause to find the Trump administration in criminal contempt. Now, this is all over President Trump's defiance of Boasberg's order to turn around the planes, turn them back around, the ones that were carrying violent and deadly illegals bound for El Salvador. In this 46-page decision, Boasberg says the Trump administration's actions on March 15th are, quote, sufficient for the court to conclude that probable cause exists to find the government in criminal contempt. The court does not reach such conclusions lightly or hastily, he said. Indeed, it has given defendants ample opportunity to rectify or explain their actions. None of their responses has been satisfactory, he said. Well, joining us now to discuss is Robert Charles, former Assistant Secretary of State and a newly announced candidate for Maine's governor chair. Welcome. We're glad to have you. Want to get to your candidacy to be Maine's next governor in a moment. But what is your take on Judge Boasberg's decision to hold the Trump White House in contempt over deportation of violent criminals?
Yeah, so I clerked on the U.S. Court of Appeals. I know what the law is, and he is just way out of sync with where things are supposed to be. This is like imagining that you're in the middle of World War II and you're just going to ignore, you're going to favor Nazis in some way because what we're doing is Trump is saying we are under invasion. OK, if you have the law is very clear. If you have a foreign terrorist and they are an admitted foreign terrorist and the FTOs, the drug traffickers and this particular gang member, as I understand it, are tied back. They are terrorists. And so if you are an admitted terrorist, you are not you are not entitled to the same rights that an average American citizen who's law-abiding is entitled to. And look, this judge, it really bothers me because these judges, these district judges, are deciding that they can play president of the United States, and it just doesn't work. You can't do that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just common sense. If you are a terrorist, you don't have the same rights as an American. You know, Robert, you grew up in Wayne, Maine. Now that rolls off the tongue. Gina, Emily Finn may not roll off your tongue, but Wayne, Maine definitely rolls off the tongue. What would becoming Maine's next governor mean to you? And what would you focus on if you were to become governor?
Yeah, it's actually a very simple question with a very simple answer. I don't recognize my state anymore. I did grow up here, a little town of 500 people, and I've written books about it. But the reality is this state is under siege. Those same illegal aliens, those same drug traffickers, those same groups that are terrorist and drug trafficking organizations are all over the state of Maine. It's hard to believe. I'm seeing your beautiful pictures of our state. But the reality is fentanyl is everywhere. We lose 40 to 70 kids a month. We are in a state of genuine crisis, and I dare say the state has never faced the kind of peril it's facing. So the two basic issues in this state right now are public safety, where we have drugs shattering lives, topping down 10,000 overdoses last year in a state that when I was growing up had maybe 5 statewide. The other big issue is the fact that the Democrats have completely betrayed the people of this state. Life is unaffordable. People cannot, we're #1 property taxes in the country. People who are seniors cannot afford their homes. They're being basically run out of their homes on a rail based on the fact that the property taxes and everything every other tax burden on a fixed income is unmatchable. And then you go to the young people, and those under the age of 35 cannot buy a home. They can't even rent a home up here in Maine. They can't even rent an apartment because the difference between median income and median rental is $200 a month. So my mission, frankly, and I encourage people, go to Bobby for Maine, bobbyformaine.com. If you want to turn this state red, my commitment is we are going to turn this entire state red in 2026. We are going to get back to basics. I spent my entire life as a crime fighter and as a naval intelligence officer and as a businessman. I know what it means to hurt, and frankly, this state is hurting. I'm a dad. I mean, yeah, we've got all these ridiculous Democrat-driven woke ideas. I'm a father of a daughter, and I'll just tell you, I would be in the face of anybody that was trying to put her in a position where her integrity or her safety was compromised, and we do need to battle that. But the biggest two issues are, in this state, we are being shellacked by criminal groups, Dominican, Mexican, Chinese. We need to stop that. Within 24 months, I will get organized crime out of this state. And the other big issue is make this life affordable again here in Maine. Average people cannot afford it. They're living with anxiety because they can't afford basic life, fuel and gas and eggs in their home. So we got to get back to normal. The Democrats have taken us deep into the world of abnormal, and we're gonna leave that planet and go back to the idea of absolutely normal Norman Rockwell values. And we got to do it. It's the future of the state.
Robert, it's interesting to me. You laid out some of the issues that you feel are most critical in terms of cost of living there and affordability in Maine and then public safety. But most of the country, when they think of Maine, they think of this face-off between your current governor and the Trump administration over transgender women in girls' sports, which you also touched on. How do you turn the ship around there? And I only say that because you're a coastal state. How do you turn the ship around in Maine? Because there seems to be this opposition, if you will, right now between the governor and the federal government. And there seems to be, okay, we're digging in for a fight. That's what we want. We want to fight, even if it's on an issue that probably few people in Maine really care about or is front and center for them.
Yeah, listen, this governor, in my view, is just nuts. You have an environment where you have crazy ideologues versus normal people. 85%, I'm going to say, of this state are normal people. They just want the government out of their life. They want a chance to make a living. They want their kids to be safe, obviously, in the schools. They don't want this sort of Marxist, crazy ideological stuff in our schools. And they also talk about our schools. Our schools were in one of the top school systems in the country during the 1990s. Today, they are number 49 out of 50, Terrance. We are in a position where the crazies are trying to assert their control over this state. I mean, half of these people, if you talk with them one-on-one, some of them are from Berkeley, California. They've come into this state. They've decided they're going to try to take this state away from normal Mainers. And I'm here to tell you, normal Mainers are going to take their state back. We do not want someone like Janet Mills telling us what's normal. And the law is completely against her. She knows this. The Supremacy Clause completely on Title IX is crystal clear, and she's been a beneficiary of this all her life. She is a beneficiary of Title IX. So the notion that you could come in here and take it away from people like my daughter, okay, that is absurd, and it's borderline criminal. I mean, I'll just tell you, Mainers don't take lightly to people telling them that what they have to do, what they have to think, and when that thinking is crazy, they don't take easy to it.
Yeah. Well, Robert Charles, when you win your election, we expect the announcement on this show. I think we have it on a tape that you're going to do it like that. And we appreciate you being with us. I'm teasing you. I hope you have a great day, great weekend. Happy
I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. I want the first interview.
That's right.
Well, hey, just listen. Terrance say, I'm going to come right to you.
Oh, that's awesome. You and Emily Flynn.
Nicely played. You've got my vote on that alone, and I don't live in Maine. I might move there just in case.
I love it. All right, you guys. Thanks so much again. All right, coming up, how does President Trump's proposed $5 million gold card work? Could it be a remarkable game changer to get money flowing into the U.S. economy like never before? We're going to discuss those details when we return right after this.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm American Sunrise correspondent Emily Finn. Did you know the AARP, yes, the group claiming to support seniors, has promoted Drag Queen Story Hour? They also backed Obamacare, opposed the Trump tax cuts, and continue to support policies that undermine faith, family, and freedom. That's why there's AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, the conservative alternative to ARP. AMAC is fighting for Social Security, election integrity, and the Judeo-Christian values that built this nation. Plus, members get great benefits, discounts, insurance, and the AMAC magazine filled with real news and conservative insight. And guess what? Anyone can join, no matter your age. Right now, you can get a 5-year AMAC membership for just $31. That's 47% off the regular price, but don't wait. The special offer ends April 30th. So if you care about faith, freedom, and the future of America, go to amac.us/sunrise and join the fight. That's amac.us/sunrise. For more, let's bring in the editor-in-chief of AMAC Newsline, Shane Harris. Shane, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So, Shane, I want to get your take on this. You know, Democrats are rallying around an illegal alien who had no right to be in this country in the first place. Chris Van Hollen, the Democrat senator from Maryland, flew down to El Salvador on Wednesday to basically try to bust Kilmar Albrego Garcia, who is a citizen of that country, an alleged member of MS-13, out of prison and back to the United States. Meanwhile, Rachel Morin, an actual U.S. citizen in Maryland, was just killed by an illegal alien. But Chris Van Hollen and his Democrat colleagues ignore it. This is exactly why Democrats lost in 2024. They're putting criminal illegal aliens ahead of their own constituents and making a big spectacle out of this while ignoring how illegal immigration is ravaging their communities. You know, tell us, how is AMAC supporting what President Trump is doing to really crack down on immigration here?
Yeah, well, AMAC and our great AMAC members, they've been against illegal immigration in favor of border security from day one, supporting President Trump. When Joe Biden was in office and 10 million illegal aliens were coming across the border, we had AMAC members reaching out to their members of the House, reaching out to their senators and telling them, you know, stop what's going on. We don't like it. We feel unsafe. And now still, unfortunately, we have President Trump back in office. He has secured the border, but we still have these lingering effects from Joe Biden's open border. And, you know, what happened to Rachel Morin was a tragedy, and it was an avoidable tragedy. And I think that's what makes people so angry, so frustrated, is that every crime we see perpetrated by an illegal alien is a preventable tragedy. And while you have senators like Senator Van Hollen going down to El Salvador to, as you said, try to essentially bust a citizen of that country out of prison, he's ignoring his own constituents. He's calling Abrego Garcia his constituent. That's not true. His constituent is Rachel Morin, is Patty Morin, who was at the White House yesterday talking about what happened to her daughter. If you listen to that, it's heartbreaking to hear. And you can tell Patty Morin, Rachel's mom, is somebody who's not overtly political, but she's furious with how her family's plight has been ignored by Democrats in favor of this open borders extremism. And frankly, it's sad to see, and it's a disgrace for the party and for our country.
Absolutely a disgrace. You know, we all watched that video of Patty Morin yesterday at the White House, and she really just wants people to tell the truth about this. And, you know, Chris Van Hollen, how awful. If he cares so much about people from El Salvador, he should move down there and run to be in their Senate instead, because, you know, America needs politicians who are going to put American people first, like President Trump. That's exactly what he is doing. What would you like to see happen in terms of immigration, in terms of all of these deportations? Is the Trump administration doing enough here, or does there still need to be more work to be able to keep us safe?
Well, there's always going to be more work that needs to be done. And I think that President Trump and the Trump administration be the first ones to tell you that. And something that I'd like to see is all of these rogue district court judges trying to stop the Trump administration from enforcing immigration law, from deporting illegal aliens. That has to stop, because what happened to Rachel Morin is just going to keep happening if we have some judge in some state who decides that he wants to stop what the federal government is doing to keep us safe, to enforce the law. And until that happens, as long as we have unelected judges sitting on these benches, issuing these nationwide injunctions, telling President Trump he has to turn around deportation flights, that they have to go down to El Salvador and basically kidnap one of their citizens and bring them back here. As long as we have that, as long as we have judges trying to throw a wrench into what President Trump is trying to do, we're not going to be as safe as we deserve to be as a people.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Shane Harris, thank you so much for joining us. Now, coming up on American Sunrise, have you heard about President Trump's so-called gold card proposal for ultra-wealthy investors? It could be a game changer. The details are coming up.
Welcome back, everyone. We appreciate you starting your Thursday morning with us here on American Sunrise. We are almost to Friday. Momentarily, we're going to get you to New York, though, for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. I can tell you right now, the big blemish on our board is on the Dow. As you can see, it is down pretty significantly, well over a percentage point. The good news, though, is that the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are up right now. The NASDAQ up over 114 points, both of them in the green. Gold and silver, which typically over the past couple of weeks have been in the positive, not looking so positive right now, and crude oil is up. We, of course, will take you to the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange here in short order. But first, let's get you over to actually Dr. Gina. It's going to be Dr. Gina. So I'm sorry, Dr. Gina. Good morning.
Hey, at least we all know how to pronounce my name. So there's that going for us. All right. And Terrance is coughing in the middle of what I was saying. See, I think he did that just to get me back. All right, you guys, President Trump has touted a potential gold card program. He says it will allow the most successful job creating people from all over the world to purchase a path to U.S. citizenship. Trump says the $5 million gold card is just one of his plans to revamp U.S. immigration policies. So, in my opinion, this could be a really remarkable game changer. And Ali John-Gary is the CEO and founder of EB5 Investors and magazine, and he believes this could be a game changer too. He joins us now. Welcome, Ali. Listen, how exactly will this change the way business is done in the U.S.? And I understand the financial perspective, the good points in this, but how does this help with the corruption that has taken place in days past? Because I feel like perhaps looking down the road, when you have this much money involved, some of this could be corrupted. Tell us what stopgap measures will be in place for that.
You know, it's interesting. This industry's been regulated and it's been under, scrutiny many, many years. One of the things is Homeland Security. That's one of the ways that people get screened. There's anti-money laundering, and there's other things that are in place. And it takes many, many months until someone's admitted into the program. So the safety measures are actually in place, and the Reform and Integrity Act has really created a good way to keep people honest, and you get the right people into the country to reduce the deficit for this program.
I really do think it's exciting. I think it will revolutionize the way things are done. What will this really mean, though, to the average American citizen?
Well, just look at what it's done so far. It creates right now the EB-5 program, which is the baby brother, brings in $800,000 per family, and it creates 10 U.S. jobs. These are actual U.S. jobs that have been happening for the last 10 to 15 years coming into our country. It's created many, many jobs and also created money for projects that have been much needed. Projects such as the hospitals in Alabama, there's been the Arkansas Steel Factory, the Bright Line train. There's many, many programs and projects that this has funded over the years, and it also brings in U.S. jobs. I believe that the Gold Card is only going to enhance this program. You're looking at a deficit cut of $5 million per person that comes in, which is going to be huge impact to our economy.
Huge, as some might say. Ali, one last quick question. We are completely out of time, but that actual Gold Card, is that an actual thing? That card that we're seeing that President Trump has signed with his face on the front of it, is this an actual thing that the purchasers of this program will receive?
It looks very cool to me. I love the Gold Card. I mean, I think a black card would have been cool too, but gold is just as good. I believe he's going to create a program. I was just recently looking at the technology that they're
Yeah, we're out of time.
I'm
so sorry, Ellie. I just really was asking that in a rhetorical way because I think President Trump has such a great sense of humor. But it is so good to have you. Thanks for your expertise on this. Ali John Gary, I have to look at my notes to see how to pronounce your last name, too. Thanks for being with us. We're heading
Thanks
back
for
over.
having me.
Absolutely. We're heading back over to Terrance in Denver for the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange, sponsored, of course, by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
The applause is underway at the New York Stock Exchange, which means the bell is just moments away from ringing, and we'll get an idea of how the markets are looking as they officially open up. I can tell you pre-market trading not looking good on the Dow, but the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, were both in the green. So hopefully we'll see a change here now that the markets are open. You hear the bell. And here is our board. Just like that, the Dow remaining down more than 400 points. However, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are both in the positive. Gold and silver, which had been pretty strong over the past several days, are at least starting this trading day in the red. And crude oil, which had been suffering over the past couple of days, is up pretty significantly, up over 1.5 percentage points. So we'll continue to monitor all of this for you throughout the day. In the meantime, tax day may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just now beginning. If you happen to miss the April 15th deadline, or if you still owe back taxes, the IRS is ramping up enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse. With over 5,000 new tax liens filed every single day and tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, the IRS is applying pressure at levels that we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative scrutiny means collections are moving fast, but the good news is there's still time for Tax Network USA to help you. Self-employed or a business owner, well, even if your books are a mess, they've got it covered for you. Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track. Even after the deadline, it's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is completely free, and acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Here's the number to call, 800-905-8000, or you can go online to tnusa.com/RAV. You may have missed April 15th, but you haven't run out of options just yet. Let Tax Network USA help before the IRS makes the next move. All the information right there on your screen. Still to come here on American Sunrise, it's been nearly 100 days into President Trump's second term in office, so what does President Trump believe is his proudest accomplishment? We'll talk about it next. Plus, the Trump administration escalates its feud with Maine over transgender athletes in women's sports. How can the state allow biologically born men to compete in women's sports? That's also a talker that we'll have. It's coming your way here on American Sunrise. Welcome back to American Sunrise. We appreciate you being here with us. It is now time to take the political pulse of America. The beat today, President Trump touts his administration's accomplishments. During an interview with Fox Noticias on Tuesday, the president was asked what he was most proud of in his second tenure in the Oval Office, and here was his answer.
Is 100%. It's like literally 100%. It's perfect now. We want people to come in, but they have to come in legally, and everybody agrees to that. We had 11,088 murderers. Half of them killed more than one person. These are rough, bad people. We want them out. We're going to have a self-deportation program, which we haven't even announced yet. I guess I'm announcing it to you. Why not, Rachel? Here it is.
All right, let's bring in Dr. Gina, Emily, and host of America's Voice Live, Stéphane Goubert. I guess that's more French, not really Spanish, but I tried it anyway, Steve. Good morning, my friend. Good to see you. So one of the president's main campaign promises, of course, was securing the border. He talked about that as being one of his biggest accomplishments so far. How do you assess, and we're not quite at 100 days yet, but how do you assess the second Trump term so far?
I think it's working. I think that a lot of folks are being sent out. Adios, Estados Unidos. Goodbye, America. That's what they should be saying as they head out the door, right? That's it. And the fact of the matter is this, 56% of the people asked on CNN just yesterday said they want every single illegal alien in this country deported. That's the fact, Terrance. That's the way it is. And in fact, if you look at 2016, it was 38% then. It's 56% now. People voted for this. They're getting what they wanted. We are clearing the country of criminals, as we heard the president say right there. A lot of these killers killed more than one person. And how is it that Rachel Marin's mother is at the podium yesterday, standing next to Caroline Leavitt? CNN doesn't cover it. MSNBC doesn't cover it. Apparently, they've got more important things to do than talk about a real Maryland mom, a mother of 5, murdered brutally, raped, murdered, and then, strangely enough, raped again. And these are the kind of crimes that are gut-wrenching. Look, nobody wants MS-13 living next door to them, but somehow Chris Van Hollen flies down to El Salvador, makes a fool of himself for a photo op to try to free a guy who we are now learning, by the way, had restraining orders against him for beating his wife in 2001, was stopped a year later in the state of Tennessee with a carload of people for driving erratically, no driver's license, no ticket issue, driving without a driver's license, driving erratically. I don't think I would get away with that. Had a carload of people that he couldn't identify who they were or why they were there, and so he was flagged for possibly being involved with human trafficking. I mean, the evidence piles up here, and it's not just this guy. It's hundreds more or thousands more like him. He's not an American citizen.
Absolutely.
He's not here legally. He came into the country illegally. He committed crimes. He beat his wife. He was involved with human trafficking. He had MS-13 gang tattoos, according to President Bukele of El Salvador. We'll wait for the pictures. I mean, are there some technical issues here? You know, what's weird about this, he was not allowed to go back to El Salvador because of threats on his life from a rival gang, meaning he's a gangbanger. I don't know why this is so hard. This is pretty easy. If we had sent him to Guatemala, it'd all be legal. Anyhow, that's where we are.
Yeah, this shouldn't be so hard. I mean, it's really, really infuriating that the Democrats are trying to get behind literally a gang member. You know, Steve, I want to get your take on this. Terrance is not the only one that was trying out a little Spanish here. The president, he tried saying "Make America Great Again" in Spanish during the interview. Let's take a listen. I want to see how it sounded and get your reaction, Steve.
Vamos a hacer América grande otra vez.
America grande otra vez.
Okay, not too bad. How did he do?
Yeah, you're not great. You know, look, I live in a, not great. I'm not great at it. He was less than not great. It was pretty rough. Look, my wife's Puerto Rican. People know that. She speaks a fair amount of Spanish, and, you know, we practice it around the house here. I'm learning. I'm slowly learning. It's hard at my age. I should have learned this when I was 12. It'd have been a lot easier. Look, I love the fact that these folks are here. I love the fact that these people want to come to America. I love the fact that they're voting with their feet and they want to be part of the American dream. I get all that, and I support that. All we ask, this is pretty simple. Do it legally. Is that really so much to ask? Just go through the process. As we have learned, we didn't need new laws in Congress to secure the border. We needed a new president. We didn't need new directives. We needed a new direction. And that's where we are. And so when you come to America, get your work visa, your green card, become a citizen, we support all of that. But when they flood the country with illegal aliens, and nobody actually knows the number, I'll say it's 20 million that came in during Joe Biden's administration. I mean, isn't it odd, and I'll ask you guys this, for the last 20 years, the number is always 12 million. It's 12 million illegals in the country. It never changes. It's a static number from those that report on such things, and you know better than that. It's not true. And then you've got judges saying that 530,000 people brought into the country from, let's see, Cuba, Nicaragua, Guatemala, wherever, Venezuela. You can't throw them out. Every one of these people needs an individual hearing. 530,000 hearings to keep the, I mean, all that does is stop the entire system. I hope the Supreme Court weighs in, clears up this nonsense. It is the president of the United States, Estados Unidos. It is America, the president, El Presidente.
Otra vez.
Huh? Yeah, there it is. There he is. That makes that decision, all right? And not good. My Spanish is not great, but it's better than Mr. President, I apologize. I'm better than that. What do you think? Did I do better? You guys can tell me. I think I did a little bit better. No.
You were pretty poor too. But I'm sorry, you were pretty poor.
Okay, fine. Fine.
America Grande.
That's what Ivy says.
Terrance is the accent connoisseur on this program, Steve. I'm sorry you are not allowed to upstage him on that. He's been practicing all day, and he's very proud. Steve, meanwhile, where are the feminists? I just can't stop thinking about the fact this press briefing yesterday in the White House with Rachel Warren's mom comes on the heels of all of the action regarding this, the women, men and women's sports. Yeah. And we keep talking about that. Pam Bondi announced yesterday the DOJ is suing Maine's Department of Education over refusing to ban transgender athletes in women's sports. This is what real feminism is. And yet the feminists who've been out there screaming for decades on the far left side of politics, totally silent. Take a listen to this.
We tried to get Maine to comply. We don't like standing up here and filing lawsuits. We want to get states to comply with us. That's what this is about. We have repeatedly notified Maine of its infractions and urged them to remedy the situation to protect women. We've stripped grants from Maine through other departments, and we are going to continue to fight for women.
Now, I detest the word feminist. I'm of the Phyllis Schlafly vein, if you guys can remember, of women's rights. I like men better than women. I'm just going to lay that right out there. But what mother of daughters could possibly want men on the courts and in the locker rooms endangering their children? I mean, let's pretend that every man that ever went in a locker room was perfectly behaved gentleman. Let's just pretend that. That's not the case, first of all. But secondly, just the sheer size and volume of a man on a playing field or on a court with a woman in sports is dangerous. Women have been very much damaged by this. Where are the feminists, Steve? I can't get over the where are the feminist questions. Deafening silence.
It's selective identification, by the way, Dr. G. Selective identification. What do I mean by that? Well, these 6 women, and yes, they all were, that boarded Jeff Bezos' little rocket ship or whatever it is to fly around the earth a couple of times. They're all women. They can identify those folks. But somehow when you ask somebody in a Supreme Court confirmation hearing, what's a woman? I'm not a biologist. Neither am I. But I can identify what a woman is, and I can identify what a man is. It's pretty simple stuff. And it's remarkable to me, whether it's this wife being beaten by this El Salvadoran illegal alien, or women being disrespected because Title IX is being completely ignored. I agree with you across the board. Look, men should not be in girls' locker rooms. Pretty clear. If the state of Maine doesn't want federal funding, good, don't take it. We won't send it. Any other states want to step up, because apparently a couple more are going to do the same thing, then we won't send money to places like Illinois or California either. You want men in women's locker rooms competing against them on the track or in the pool? Fine, you go ahead and do that. We'll just hold on to the money until further notice. Look, we're not obligated to pay states that violate federal law. If you go back in time, that's how they got the highway traffic safety bills through in the 1970s and 80s. They threatened to take money away from states like Wyoming. Either you make the speed limit 55 or you don't get federal funding. Pretty simple stuff. Maine is not a big state. How many people live in Maine? 4 million? 3.5 million? Not very many, right? Pretty small state. You cannot afford to ignore federal funding because you can't self-fund. You can't. And then you've got Harvard. They're out $2.2 billion. Good. Let them be out another $2 billion every 6 months or so until they finally realize, you know what, we can't fight back. Or just take away their nonprofit status, which the administration is moving toward. If you want to violate federal law, you no longer have nonprofit status. Pretty simple thing that you have, and they're using them. And I applaud this, Dr. G, because the difference here is this. During Trump 1.0, they weren't quite prepared for all the lawsuits coming. This time around, they were prepared for the lawsuits and the pushback and the nonsense and the chaos. And they brought in a team of lawyers, highly skilled lawyers that can play lawfare every bit as well as those on the left. And I think that is critically important to what we're seeing today.
Hey, Steve, really quickly, before we let you go, I want to talk to you about the situation in northern Michigan right now. The ice storm a couple of weeks ago apparently still impacting that region. In a text to me, you described it as a war zone. Talk about that situation.
Yeah. Hundreds of square miles. The worst ice storm in more than a century hit northern half of the lower peninsula of Michigan. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of square miles. There are more than 10,000 people still without power. It's 18 days later. And we drove through there, Ivy and I did. And it looks like that. I mean, it's entire forests that have been destroyed. Entire homes that were destroyed. It is remarkable, and you can see the trees snapping there. When ice comes and sits on trees, they just fall apart, they collapse. The devastation is far-reaching. It'll be generational. It will never be the same in my lifetime as this ice did just remarkable damage, like a Category 5 hurricane. It is quite something to see, and you can see the ice falling there on the Mackinac Bridge, which connects the upper and lower peninsula for nobody who's been there. It is a real tragedy, and they're still trying to fix it.
And to think that 18 days later in America, there are still people in the dark and still trying to recover from that sort of natural disaster. Steve, Good to talk to you as always, my friend. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll talk soon. More possible corruption in Washington, D.C. is uncovered. So, did D.C.'s Attorney General really hand over lucrative contracts to Democrat allies? We'll discuss. Also, a worst-case scenario for pet owners. Fido runs away, and they have no microchip or tags. Find out about the free solution that could help you bring your beloved furry friend home. Dr. Gina, listen up, even though yours are probably taken care of. All of that and more coming up here on American Sunrise.
Let's spill some tea.
All right, let's spill some tea. Sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. Make sure to go to artilleryteacode.com and use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. Artillery tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. ArtilleryTeaCode.com, and make sure to use the promo code America's Tea for 25% off your first order. It is time now to spill some tea, and in the cup today, D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb, who's being accused of giving lucrative contracts to political allies. Several conservative groups are now asking Congress to investigate the D.C. AG's office for allegedly giving contracts to private law firms of political friends and former employees. In a letter to lawmakers, the groups allege the D.C. AG's office's practices raise concerns about the integrity of the district's legal system. They write, quote, while this may serve Schwab's political interests and allies, it does not necessarily serve the interest of district residents. Adding, many constituents have expressed frustration that Attorney General Schwab, isn't doing enough to address crime and improve public safety. Let's bring in Dr. Gina and Terrance to discuss here. You know, Terrance, do you anticipate that Congress is going to, in fact, take a closer look at this, if these contracts were given out in some kind of a corrupt way?
I think Congress should. There's so many things on the table, and the reality is Congress has promised a lot of things when it comes to Washington, D.C., not necessarily followed through. The first thing that comes to mind for me are the January 6 tapes. Congress has promised to get those out to the public. That hasn't happened, and that's been well over a year. So I hope that there will be investigations. I hope there will be some sort of movement. Whether it in fact will happen or not, we shall see, Dr. Gina.
Have you ever had these conversations with a Democrat? Because it's very interesting to do. So you start bringing up things like this, you start talking about things like this, and even some establishment Republicans will do the same thing. And they engage in what I call, from a philosophical perspective anyway, ad hominem attacks. They come up with something different to attack about something someone else did. It reminds me, though, it's such a fancy name for something so simple. When you're on the playground in first grade and the kid hits the other kid in the head with a ball, and the teacher comes and says, what happened? He says, well, he called me a name. Right? That's an ad hominem attack. It's basically it takes one to know one. It's basically, what is really happening in our political system over and over again. And thus, no one is ever punished for anything. That's why. Because everyone excuses because someone else did something wrong. So that means that whatever you did wrong didn't really happen. It's projection, classic. And anyway, this is how they will continue to excuse this. The Democrats are in the same trouble that the establishment, the Never Trump Republicans were in a while ago. They have a whole identity crisis. And I think it's very interesting that James Carville came out. I wanted to play this earlier, but we didn't get to it, saying that the Democrat Party may just have to split in half. Those are scary words to the Democrats right now. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Split in half or become obsolete. Really doesn't seem there's a good path forward for them here, Gina. And I do want to point out, it is interesting, this playground, this analogy that you were bringing up, the playground is in their backyard. It's right there in D.C. in the Attorney General's office. It's just wild, wild. We want to know what you guys think. Let us know on Rumble or Getter. Hop on and let your voice be heard. There's still a whole lot more to come on American Sunrise. Every lost pet should be reunited with their loving family. So what can you do to make sure Fido makes it home if they run away or if a natural disaster strikes and you're separated from your fur baby? Find out. The cost is free. The details ahead on American Sunrise.
right, welcome back to American Sunrise. I'm Dr. Gina, and this is Sleepy Colby that I just woke up on the sofa next to me here. It is time now for our sunny side up, and in the band today, an Amber Alert for dogs. Founder of FidoAlert.com, John Bradford, says this free service, you guys, it's a free service, uses technology, a QR code, and text messages to alert owners about their missing dogs. So here's how it works. Pet owners make a profile to manage their dog's information, which includes photos and contact information. Now, after the profile is made, each animal gets a unique photo ID and a QR tag. So if your furry friend goes missing, say that 5 times fast, owners can trigger an alert to anyone within a couple of miles of the pet's last known location. Now, if the lost pet is found, the animal's QR code tag can be scanned, which then also triggers a notification to the owner and emergency contacts. Pet owner Elizabeth Heeman says about Fido Alert, I got my tag a long time ago, and my large dog broke off his steel chain, and thanks to Fido Alert, he was found. This service is literally a lifesaver and is actually 100% free, you guys. Bradford says the network already has more than 1 million members in the U.S. with 1.5 million pets registered. Thanks to Fido Alert, 40,000 pets have been reunited with their owners. Colby, act impressed. Those are impressive numbers. I don't have Colby registered on Fido Alert. I'm just going to confess. And my chinchilla got out 2 days ago, and I have not found her. I didn't know about Fido Alert. Did you guys?
No, this is my first time hearing about it. Oh, no. Terrance is disappointed to hear about the chinchilla.
Who owns a chinchilla that's not a fur coat? I'm sorry, maybe that's insensitive, but Dr. Gina, who actually owns a chinchilla like that you don't wear?
Well,
I've never
daughter,
heard of such.
Terrance, you'll learn about this. My daughter rescued this chinchilla, and then I inherit everything that my children rescue. But they came by the rescue part, honestly. But no, I mean, it's a great idea. You know, it's called Neighbors app or Nextdoor app. The Nextdoor app kind of functions like this. I've had, a cat, wander over to a neighbor's yard, get out. My special needs guy sometimes will accidentally leave a door open, Sammy, and he doesn't do it intentionally, but a cat will wander out and then I put the alert out on the Nextdoor app, and that kind of works the same way as the Fido thing. But I think this Fido thing is really cool. Colby and I are going to register right after he wakes up.
Absolutely. And hopefully once the chinchilla returns home, you can register the chinchilla as well.
I'm sorry. I'm still blown that you own a chinchilla. I have never heard of such. You are full of surprises, Dr. Gina. Full of surprises.
I'm a zoo going somewhere to happen. Chinchillas actually coexist very well with my bunnies. So they're in my bunny cage. I have rescue bunnies as well. One named Tam Tam, after our women in our chat that we all know and love. One of my bunnies, my rescue bunnies, I named Tam Tam. So you guys, great show today. We have the oddest conversations day after day, but we're glad you're right along with us for the ride. We have so much more for you. Every single morning starts at 8 a.m. We will see you then, 7 a.m. for the early show with Jake Novak. War Room, of course, is up next. How your children love your God. Register your free Fido app for your dog or your chinchilla, whichever it may be. Go boldly now. Have a great, great Resurrection Week.
This one is it. We both are so excited 'cause we're
I mean, you have the government of El Salvador, the president of El Salvador, make this deal with the Trump administration. I think it's $15 million that the Trump administration is going to be paying El Salvador to essentially take these folks from the United States who have been denied due process in the case of Kilmar. And again, Republicans seem to be happy to take photo ops at this site and celebrate the fact that the president of the United States is ignoring court orders and that the government of El Salvador is keeping this guy locked up who's committed no crime at all. So I do think, though, as we continue to put the spotlight on this injustice, that they ultimately will have to let him go. I believe that will be the case because I believe people will keep pressing for justice.
Deport all undocumented immigrants. Voters favoring the government trying to deport all 11 million of them. Back in 2016, just 38% of voters wanted the government to try to deport all 11 million undocumented immigrants. Compared to where we are in 2025, 56%, the majority. The American people have come a long way on this issue, much closer to Donald Trump, and I think that's a big part of the reason why Americans are increasingly saying the country is on the right track when it comes to immigration. immigration policy and why Donald Trump's net approval rating on that issue is in the positive.
Part of their mission is to use their power in the U.S. government to destroy American higher education, to destroy U.S. colleges and universities, not because of any particular thing that colleges and universities are doing.